Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Here's the keeper by Milroe. Goes to the right side. Dances down the right sideline. And he is in. Touchdown, Alabama. 13 yards on the run by Jalen Milroe.
Empty set from the 46. Throw it to Mekhi Hughes. The little guy weaves his way into Skyhawk territory. He might go the distance. He's inside the 20, the 10, the 5. Foot race. Touchdown. He wins that foot race. Put 6 on the board for the dog.
May. Play action going to throw. Has a man open. Touchdown, Carolina. Kobe Paysword cradles it home for 6.
Empty backfield. Travis makes a chest high snap over the middle. Caught Coleman. Break the tackle to the 25. Coleman. He's open free. Shot in there, baby. Touchdown, Florida State. Touchdown, FSU.
This is a total failure on a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint that, you know, we have to obviously address and we have to own.
Play action fake. Back he goes. Great protection. Now steps up. Looks. Delivers downfield for Lambert Smith. He's got him at the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Penn State. That 2023 season starts with a bang.
Second down to 10 for the 25. There's a swing pass out of the back middle of the screen. Caught by Dylan Edwards. He's got men in front of him running at the 30 to the near sideline. To 35, 40. Up the sideline. Here he goes. 35 on his way to the end zone. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown.
What's up, boss? You believe that? You hold on. Oh, no. You believe that? Huh? Oh, no. I read through that bull jump you wrote there. I read through that. I sifted through all that. Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to talk about Dion at all today. This is the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Welcome in on a Monday Tuesday. Yeah, it's, getting the week started off right.
Oh,
hopefully
man.
with your two buds over here. And then Shane.
Me and you? Or you and this guy?
I've been you and me.
Oh, me and you.
Shane's here too.
All right, fringe dude, my man.
Not a fringe guy. He's a core guy. He's just on the peripheral of the core.
Said Shane, man, are you producing today? in about 90 seconds.
Yeah, that's Shane's a good dude. He gave me a ride last couple days until I got my rental, so I appreciate that.
I see you over there in your little
I don't say what it is, because I'm going to tell you how I feel about it here in a second.
No bueno.
I hate those things.
What is it again?
The car?
Yeah, they're not going to be a sponsor, but
Toyota RAV4s.
It's a RAV4?
I hate them like out loud to an irrational level.
Why? What happened?
Well, no, so here's the deal. They're crap.
Really?
So it's a Toyota, so the engine's going to run forever, right? But it's a rental, so I don't care about that. They are so cheap feeling on the inside. Everything's like feels like it's going to break off in your hand.
Vibing with
just
the
this
ergonomics.
Nasty plastic nonsense.
Oh,
it's
Lord.
Awful.
Oh, Lord.
So when I was giving Ravi a lift,
Uh-huh.
we were listening to some music, and I'll give you one guess, Damon, about what the music was. If you can guess, then you don't owe me any more lunches, since you owe me like 2.
Okay.
So you get one guess. Just guess the
On
music.
what Ravi was listening to?
No, what he was listening to with me in the car.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with...
Because you're not going to get it.
You went with Steely Dan.
No.
I could have been vibing with some Steely Dan. I don't even remember the name of it. What was it, Shane?
We were listening to the Fat Boys.
Oh, that's right. It was the Fat Boys.
Okay, put that on the board of things that don't make sense.
And I was like, Shane, this is a little before my time.
But don't surprise me one iota. Not one bit. Not one bit.
So there we go. We are getting you ready. We're here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. You can hear us on AM 590, ESPN Radio Omaha, or ESPN Tri-Cities.
What's up, Tri-Cities?
You can get us on YouTube, Twitter, all the places.
My voice still sucks, but it's all great.
You getting better? You getting so you had game and then you coached.
Yeah,
so you're struggling a little bit.
All good in the neighborhood.
I thought you were gonna, I'm gonna put you on blast here a little bit. You were supposed to come hang out with me Friday night, and then you
guess
ghosted.
What? So the number one thing Friday night was to get something to eat.
Yeah.
So it was all about the kitchen.
Yeah.
It truly was. It was like, which kitchen could I get to
faster.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I hadn't eaten all day.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And so I actually called your place.
Yeah.
And they gave me the fried food warning. Like, hey,
What does that mean?
we're getting ready to turn their grills over to just the fryers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that put them out.
All right.
Although I would have liked to have seen Stibbs. I mean, to heck with the rest of you guys, but Stibbs would have been cool. Isn't he funny?
Dude, Stibbs is great. I love Stibbs.
He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, terrific dude.
I hate saying that out loud. It's one of those guys you didn't think you were gonna like, but you're like, oh my gosh.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way about me.
Yeah.
They're like really
a night without him.
I feel like a lot of people are feeling that way about Dion this morning too.
You know what though? I do feel you're misread. I totally think you're misread.
Yeah, no, people that don't know me get a way different read.
It's
of me.
like, gosh, man. Sometimes it feels like he thinks he knows everything. I'm like, it's his delivery. He really doesn't. He's open to ideas.
Yeah, I am open to ideas.
He can definitely mind trick you though if you allow yourself to get bullied.
Well, listen, if you're not strong enough to stand up for what you're thinking, why should I let your opinion be as valid as mine?
Stand up for
Like,
what you believe.
if you're
in,
you taking me to Sunday school today?
Oh man, it's Tuesday. We were at school yesterday for 5 hours. It made 0 sense.
Yeah, that's the day off. I thought.
No.
You don't take a lot of those.
No, we had to finish our scouting reports, and then we met as a staff, and then the kids came in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No rest for the wicked.
Well, you got Bellevue West this week.
Yes, we do.
At Bellevue West after
I'm excited to go on the road.
A nice little stroll in the park, 45 zip over Grand Island.
Yeah.
Pretty casual.
There were some really interesting scores. I called you immediately on Friday night.
Yeah, as soon as you were done.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, what happened in that
I
Millard
said,
South?
you got to walk
game?
me through the score, because in high school, it's seldom like it.
Normal. It's not normal.
And I had heard that Ronner wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know. And almost everybody that was there described that game to a T.
Yeah.
And I follow a guy that does a lot of stuff for high school evaluations. And you guys were pretty much.
I was going to say, was my description.
Yes, you guys were pretty much on the same
It was
page.
super fluky.
Yeah. Well, he didn't use the term fluky. He said the score was misleading.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I described the sequence to you, and if you guys don't know what we're talking about,
They're like, oh, here you go, open it up with ice.
Well, listen, we did an entire show Friday about.
And listen,
Nebraska football.
I'm exhausted over Dion, so I have to give myself a second.
That's fine. We don't have to talk about Dion.
Hey, I keep receipts. That's a little over the top, right?
Yeah. So you said you like Dion though.
I do, but
so that's what I want to get to.
Okay, fine.
So let me do Millard South Elkhorn South.
You can slap my wrist.
So
how do you like that guy?
No, I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious.
Okay, all right.
Which is, I think, one of the things people miss about me is I feel very strongly about the things I think I know.
Yeah.
But I'm genuinely curious to learn more.
Okay.
At all times.
Well, I'll see if I can be of assistance.
I hope so.
I'm gonna go ahead and doubt that
because I got a lot of questions. So Millard South, Elkhorn South, real quick. One of the most high schooly games I've seen in a while.
Really?
In the sense of like, there's just kind of a lot of random things that, in higher level football, not that high school is not a high level, because obviously those guys are really, really good.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes you get some execution mistakes that you don't kind of compound on each other in a way you don't always see outside of like last 5 years of Nebraska.
Okay.
Wow. Just thought I'd slip that in there, see if anybody noticed. There was a sequence with Millard South, Elkhorn South in the first half where it goes, I believe, double tipped pass to Millard South for a 30-yard gain.
Mm-hmm.
A running back rolling off of a pile and scoring on a touchdown.
He's pretty sweet, though, isn't he?
No, he's really good, but it was also kind of a ridiculous play. I get that it's happened at other levels, but it's also not in high school. It's not something you can review, right? So it feels even more. It feels even a little bit weirder in high school because you're like, I don't know if he was down or not. Like, I have no idea. So that was the first touchdown for Millard South. Immediately after that, you have a muffed kickoff. Elkhorn South ends up basically starting from their own goal line. you have Ronner getting hammered, ball flies up in the air, pick six. All of a sudden, it's 13-0 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if it was on that play or the following series. Ronner gets sacked again, and he's banged up and he's out for the rest of the game.
I wanted you to watch him because I kind of like him.
I did what I saw of him, but it was not very much, right? It was like a quarter and a half, maybe. Pretty athletic, but good runner.
Yeah.
The passing, I was a little.
You're like,
Yeah, it seemed like there
you
was
have
some
a very high standard, though. I've noticed because you have that's like a couple of weeks in a row. You have questions about quarterbacks, like you're and as we're seeing, much like college football, it can be very quarterback. High school is very quarterback driven.
Oh yeah, especially
very quarterback.
Especially if you've got a guy that you think is really talented, it can change your entire fortunes of your team, right?
Yeah.
And so Ronner gets out. They do a couple series. Millard South has a normal field goal drive, which was the aberration of the first half.
You talking about a sustained drive?
Yeah, just marches down the field and kicks up field.
Ashton Murphy's pretty good, isn't he?
Ashton Murphy's disruptive.
Laquan is pretty good.
Isn't he? Yeah.
He's a stud.
And then
would you believe the guy from Millard's he's like a nice person.
Yeah. I mean,
he doesn't see
he's got a little nasty in him on the football field.
Oh, a little?
Well, it's like Tyson Terry kind of, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very similar. Very similar because Tyson could babysit Zoe.
Right, but on the football field, you're like,
I don't eat her.
I don't really want to be around him right now. So,
by the way, how about Millard West? I tried to tell people.
You did. You tried to tell
about that coach. It just that did not surprise me.
But then the last really fluky thing in that Millard South Elkhorn South game is they've got a backup quarterback in. They're like, I want to say 30 or 40 seconds left in the half, and they're trying to score from probably the 30 or 40 of their own. So they got a ways to go still with a backup QB in high school. And
are you setting the stage?
Well, I'm saying this isn't Millard North 03 where they're going to roll out a third stringer and win a state title.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen most places because you don't have 4 D1 offensive linemen. So they're trying to go down the field, and he throws an out that was never going to get there. Yeah. And Millard's out
in Vogue
gift wrap.
Never gonna get it. Never gonna
get
it.
His receiver was never gonna get it.
Was that in Vogue, Shane? He would.
Yes, it was.
But the Millard South guy was like, "Hey,
you have that CD?
I have the greatest hits.
Thank you for the early Christmas present."
And he housed it.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's 23-0 at halftime. And I was like, "Okay, that feels like it's about that."
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So none of those you're right. The score was not representative of how the game played out, but also Millard South beat him up a little bit.
Yeah, this is weird as a coach that coaches against him, but I said this in the summer. One of the things that I liked about Millard South, and I told this to their staff, they've embraced kind of the bad boy role, right?
Yeah.
The boys with the Z, the black jerseys,
they went with the dark gray camo last night or on Friday. Yeah.
It's quietly they've kind of become that school. So I'm like, hey man, lean into it. But
I mean, low key, they've always been that of the Millard schools.
Have they? Okay.
Oh yeah, they were. Well, especially after Millard West opened, basically, because Millard North and Millard West were the quote unquote rich kids. And then
I love the air quotes.
Well, I mean, listen,
because this is not true.
I went to Millard North, and we were middle class, right?
As the kids would say.
Yeah, it was, and so they had, but there was this perception of Millard North and Millard West kids, and then Millard South kids. Again, not an accurate perception. They were the poor Millard school.
I like it.
And so they've always kind of been the outcast Millard school, even though they're the original. Which is kind of goofy, but I don't know, whatever.
I think with Coach Means, they just had this image of he's just a nice, good natured, and he's very cordial, and but they're
going all 80s Pistons on us.
Listen, they've leaned into it.
They for sure have.
They chirp pretty good. We got up some clips of media, we're coming for that state title, and that's how they've got to think, right?
Yeah.
But what will obviously be a theme for the show, it's good to keep receipts.
Sure.
Right. And sometimes you think it can be being petty, but you try to push the buttons you can on. I'll show you our scouting report for WS. Like there's lots of little clippings, right? Because we do a scouting report every week and we print it out and we go through it as a team in our team meetings and stuff. So it's just, I mean, you try to figure out how folks are motivated, whether it's a straw man argument or not, like we heard over the weekend, which again,
I mean, listen, you show me any highly competitive person and I will show you somebody that's incredibly petty. Like just for real.
Yeah.
You know I'm right.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because it's not natural to be that competitive all the time. So you kind of have to manufacture it.
So like we're having these conversations.
I mean, most people don't go full sociopath like Jordan and make up things that didn't happen and convince themselves they're real.
So like the emotions are running high for this week, like really high yesterday. And you could tell the kids like just on Saturday, like it just running really, really high. And so you had to kind of like find ways to land the plan. I'm like, hey, let's, we're talking about their defense. And we're like, it's a very familiar defense they run. It's called adjust. We call it adjust. It's kind of a bastardized version. I think everybody went to South Dakota State to get this defense at the same. No, I'm serious. I think everybody went to South Dakota State to get this defense at the same time because, Ben Ryan ran it over at Burke, and there's a couple things that we'll do that look like that, and it's exactly what WS does. But so it's kind of made its rounds. But anyway, we had to like find ways to bring it back to football, like actual football. Just
who did we hear that from this week? Got to make it about football.
No, seriously. Like that's a thing.
No,
right?
it is.
That's a real thing. Like you have to strip away the emotions. Of whatever you think has gone on in the offseason,
kind of way about
whether it's really manufactured or not.
Whether it's
one
real.
Kid might have said something. Doesn't mean the whole team's like that. I mean,
doesn't mean they're in the locker room talking trash about you.
Right. Yeah. So, at some point, it's got to be about the football.
Yeah.
Which is, thankfully, if you're a Nebraska fan,
exactly what Coach Rhule said.
This is going to be about football.
Yeah.
Like this one. It's not the flash. It's not the dash. It's at some point you got to settle in and play football. And we've become we're like these victims, Ravi, of our own imagination, right?
Okay. Elaborate on that.
It's like Creed, right? My own prison. Court is in session. The verdict.
I mean, you went Creed. You got me.
No appeal on the docket today. Just my own sin.
See? People love Creed.
So, but my point is, we thought Nebraska was one thing. We hoped, right? We hoped Nebraska was one thing. They weren't.
Yeah.
So, because it didn't fit what was going on in our mind, we've jumped to all these conclusions, right?
Yeah.
Because we thought Colorado was one thing, or maybe it was more about what we thought TCU was.
Sure.
We've now all of a sudden extrapolate like things. You know what we knew? Do you know what we absolutely knew?
Colorado or Nebraska?
Colorado.
What?
I'll get to Nebraska too, right?
Yeah.
We knew Shedeur Sanders was good.
Yes, and Travis Hunter.
Right? Top recruits in the country coming out.
Literally, Travis Hunter was the best player in the country. Like
right?
Florida State had him lock, stock, and barrel before Deion came in.
Right? We knew Dylan Edwards was highly touted.
Legit dude.
Nothing happened in that game for me to be like, whoa, right?
Yeah, no one who wasn't capable of performing that way did something crazy.
Do you know why I'm not enamored by 110 plays?
Why is that?
Because it's not sustainable. I'm happy for him. I am.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong.
And it's incredible.
I'm not thumbing my nose up at the accomplishment.
Yeah.
It is spectacular. But
especially in that heat.
I've seen Charles Woodson get in the high 80s, almost 90 snaps, right? Like I've seen some semblance of it before.
Sure.
And believe me, if Travis Hunter was playing in the Big Ten and the Big House getting 90 some odd snaps like Woodson did, it would be a little different than him doing it where he did against what Hunter did against TCU.
Sure.
So I'm not downplaying it. I've just seen some semblances.
You have a frame of reference.
I have a frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be sustainable. So I can be impressed in the moment and move on.
Sure.
Because there's something about physicality over time where you're going to have to adjust.
Sure.
Right. So we knew that those three, Dylan Edwards, highly recruited.
And that was not a physical game, by the way. Not at all.
Dude, this is a little football-y, and I'm not diminishing Colorado because it was impressed. I knew, they have a fantastic staff. Like I used the term, I said they have a great staff.
They have a really good coaching staff. That's the one thing that I was the most impressed with Deion.
But we kind of knew that, though, right?
Yeah.
We knew that
when he put it together, I was like, oh,
yeah, damn, they got
he knows what he's doing here.
Then I also said that there's more substance than we'd like to give it credit for.
Well, it's because most guys that talk the way Deion does, and I'm not doing a race thing here. I'm doing
Dude, I felt like I was having a flashback to Public Enemy's Fear. Do you remember their album Fear of a Black Planet? Like, I get it, right? Yeah. It's like, ooh. And some people are like that. Some people are uncomfortable.
Right.
With outspoken minorities. But
sure,
that's not the majority of people you come in contact with.
And I'm not even going there. Where I'm going is guys that the self-promoting type guys.
Yeah.
Whether it's black, white, whatever, I don't care. But generally self-promoting guys that to that extent, especially on some level, are full of it. Right. Yeah. And so I think we have, and I personally, this is why I struggle with Deion personally, is I have a hard time reconciling the fact that most of the people I hear that sound like that cannot back it up, and the fact that he seems to be able to back it up. It's a huge disconnect in my brain that I have a really hard time resolving.
Yeah, some people feel like that about the former president, right?
Sure.
The brash, the bravado, I can't believe he said that in this role.
Sure.
There's something that people gravitate to it though.
Right. There is some people that are attracted to that type of personality, but most of the time when I hear it, I go, that guy's full of it. And so when you see a guy that actually has substance behind it as well, it's really hard to kind of dig through the self-promotion to get to, oh, he did hire a really good staff. Yeah. He does have some actual studs on that team. And listen, my thing was mostly always about, hey, I don't know how you assimilate 86 new guys into a program and be good on week one, right? Which obviously they did to some level.
To a certain extent.
And so that,
I mean, they allowed TCU allowed themselves to get beat by a mesh concept over and over and over
the entire
again.
Game.
I was floored.
That defense is astoundingly bad. Can we start there? Astoundingly bad.
I don't listen.
They were bad last year when they made the title game. They were like 91st in the country.
Listen, I get it.
And they're worse this year. They have one dude coming back from a very bad defense.
I was floored at the way that TCU played defense.
And that's not to take anything away from Colorado.
And I was also floored at the way that they got away from the run game. And you're right. It doesn't take one thing away from
both
Colorado.
Can be true though.
Yeah, right.
TCU can be god awful on defense, and it can still be really impressive what Colorado did.
But two other things that I know.
Yeah.
33 carries for 54 yards.
Yeah.
With the longest being 10 yards. And you gave up almost 8 per on the ground while you yielded 270 some odd yards on the ground. Those are the things like
that Nebraska can do something with.
Yeah. But it's like most things. When you have a good quarterback, it gives you hope. If you don't like your quarterback, we act like Nebraska fans.
All right. More college football wrap up on Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Takes a knee. It's over. Both arms in the air for the head coach, and why not a statement for Mike Elko as the students pour onto the field. 28-7, the final score. Duke thumps the Tigers, and they start the season with a resounding win over the number 9 team in the country.
It's entirely possible Clemson is not who we thought they were.
Hey, how about like things that like I may have to go back and
reevaluate?
Oh man, I kind of like Clemson of the teams in the top 10 that are left for dead.
Yeah, and you were all over them over FSU too.
And Old Texas Tech with the classic look-ahead game. No, Texas Tech is still legit, though.
Okay.
Now, Wyoming was just having none of it.
Sure, which you get that a lot from Craig Bowl teams, where they're just not having any of it.
Yeah. Lots of. It's easy to overreact, right? Is Iowa going to be that bad running the football?
That's a really good question.
Dude, Caleb Johnson couldn't run the ball.
No, not at all.
I'm like,
and after basically their first 2 drives, they couldn't do anything at all against Utah State.
So they're a 4-point fave over the Cyclones?
Yes, I think that's right.
That game's gonna be low scoring.
Yeah, I would take the under. I don't care what the number is.
So it's funny because
the under.
Speaking of the under and a game, did you gut out Northwestern and Rutgers?
I did not, because I wasn't aware of an under under there.
So that was like everybody's baby.
Yeah,
they didn't care what the number was.
They were going under,
and I think it was like, I don't even remember. It was like 40, maybe 40 and a half. And
the internet will tell us
that game. What did it end up? 27-7. Watching Northwestern on offense,
it's painful.
I guess to bring it full circle to Nebraska, Colorado this week, quarterbacks give you hope.
Yeah,
that's what they do. Like, they totally change the way that you think about your football team, and it's amazing how drastic it is.
Yeah, because you can have a lot of blemishes, and you talk about putting Band-Aids over bullet holes last week.
Again, I just wish we could walk through the TCU Colorado game.
I agree.
Offensively for Colorado.
Yes.
It's simplicity. Now, their pace
is a lot to deal with.
Right.
But even, there's ways forward for Nebraska to win that game.
Mesh concepts.
I don't know if they will, but I'm not looking at that game and saying it's impossible for Nebraska to win. I look at it and say, hey, if Nebraska is able to stick with the run and ball control a little bit, you're in pretty good shape. If Nebraska doesn't beat themselves with turnovers again, then you're in, and I get that's a pretty big if at this point for Nebraska, but then you're in pretty good shape. If you have any sort of semblance of a defense that isn't just getting run through like paper mache, then you've got a chance there. Theoretically, this 3-3-5 should play better against Colorado than they do against a Minnesota.
Remember when I told you I felt like when I got on the plane, there was immediate self-inventory being taken? Right? Like already on the laptops. No,
yes.
This is terrible radio because they can't see.
Right. That's why you should watch us on YouTube or Twitter.
But I want you to read that response.
Yeah.
Right? Like, took that to heart.
Yeah.
And you saw the word that he used, right? So, Nebraska, that's his code for Nebraska staff. Would you say took it personally? Took that performance personally?
Yeah, I think so.
Took it to heart?
I think so.
All right. Like, and that's not the head man. That's somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how everybody felt.
Which that's the only way to improve, right? If you
100%.
You have to internalize.
100%. There was no I was never so happy to read a reply as I was this, because I'm like, ooh, that word hurts, especially when you describe it, use it about yourself.
To describe yourself, yeah.
But I also know you got to take some self-inventory.
Yeah, because this is the biggest issue I had with the previous staff.
What? Oh, I know where you're going with this. It was everybody else's fault.
Yes. Yeah. It didn't ever feel like, and listen, for like 2 years, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they just weren't speaking well in public, that they weren't doing a good job communicating because listen,
this guy,
the differences between how Scott Frost feels in front of a mic and how Matt Rhule feels in front of the mic are night and day.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think we tried.
They couldn't be further apart.
Right. That's okay. That's fair.
So
bringing up old stuff?
Because it comes back to the new stuff, right? If for about 2 years I tried to convince myself, oh, they're just misspeaking. That's not what they actually mean.
Sure.
Internally, they're communicating things much better.
Okay.
And then because
you wanted to have hope.
Yes, because I thought I wanted it to work out. And then you get to year 4 and 5, and they're still describing things the same way in terms of things happening to them instead of them going out and making things happen. And listen, if you're in a mindset of things happen to you, not you go make things happen, you're going to have a really hard time getting control over just about anything, right?
Yeah.
But if you internalize and say, hey, we didn't love how that went for us, we know why it went that way, and we can fix it, then you're in good shape.
Yeah. So the magic is, and it's not magic, there's a different word. So when good intentions actually can become reality is if you can get over the emotional hurdle. So their biggest task, Nebraska's, is what I've said all off season. It's not physical, it's mental, because they have to learn how to win. They have a couple of guys that have to be somebody different than who they have been. And I know this knowing full well that typically the best,
so you're asking for something rare.
The best indicator of future performance is past performance.
Yeah. And it's, that.
So there's nothing Nebraska's done in the last 5 years that would suggest that they'll beat Colorado.
Correct.
But I just have this weird feeling.
It just like there was nothing to suggest as I'm sitting here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on Thursday night watching this game.
Hello, Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. I bet their kitchen would have been open. I called the bosses too on Friday. And they're like, oh no, because nobody picked up the phone. Hello, how you doing? So I asked Bill and Chris, I said, hey, what time does the kitchen close?
Yeah.
Oh man, it was tension, right? It was 10. I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
not making
that's
that
not
one.
Gonna work. That's not gonna
making
work.
That one. But yeah.
No.
So I'm glad you got to enjoy their food.
I did. But I'm sitting here and I'm watching.
Get to the kitchen.
I'm watching this Minnesota game, and I'm thinking to myself, I think they're going to win. And like you said, nothing in the last 5 years has indicated that Nebraska wins that game. And guess what? They didn't. That's fine, right? But
damn, they should have.
They really should have.
We could have looked smart.
It was right there.
We could have looked.
And I think that's the thing that's encouraging for me, despite the procedure penalties and things like that, and the targeting with Ty Robinson and whatever. Controllable penalties, right?
I
outside of turnovers.
I went back and I don't quite have the breakdown just because I spent so much. We had 3 WS games to go through, but the left side of Nebraska's offensive line has got to play.
Need a little more
better to give them a chance, because pitting it against what I saw on Saturday from TCU and Colorado, there's plays to be made. A couple of run schemes in particular that I'm kind of salivating to see if Nebraska can sustain. But you can't go from, hey, we're taking accountability. This is how this game made me feel as a coach. This is what I'd like to correct, without the players having some ownership in that too.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's like the bridge to Terabithia, right? Where
coaches can take accountability all they want.
Yeah.
But unless players also want to internalize and take accountability, then nothing's going to change.
100%.
But it does start at the top.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so concerned with the last half, is I was like, if it's not starting at the top, it's never going to get down to the players.
So emotionally, let me ask, and maybe this is a good Sam McKewon question. Emotionally, who would you give the psychological advantage to coming into Nebraska, Colorado? Would you rather be the team that's pissed off because they underperformed, or the team that's thumbing their nose up at the free world, telling you "I told you so"?
Right.
And beating their chests. Would you rather be a chest beater or a team coming off the L?
Ooh. That's a good question. We'll call that a tease for the next segment. Cody, stay there. We will get to you as well. All that and more coming up on Benning and Lulla on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds.
On guy to his left, Wimson.
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
On guy to his left, Wimson hands it off for Kool, bounces outside right, cuts inside left and scores! The Rutgers touchdown! Kyle Monungai for the Scarlet Knights punches it in from 15 yards out.
Wimson looked good.
Wrap it up. Hour number 1 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Want to tell you about our friends and remind you that the Omaha Storm Chasers have their last homestand of the year coming up starting a week from today. September 12th is your last chance to see the Storm Chasers. So make sure you get out to Werner Park. They've got promotions every single game, 12th through the 17th. They're back in town, and that will put a wrap on their home season for 2023. So make sure you go out and see our friends at the Omaha Storm Chasers.
Shano, are we talking to our friend this week, one Marty Cordero?
I haven't set it up, but we've been asked, and that is on my list of things.
Okay.
All right.
So I can't wait
to talk to Marty this
I'd like
week.
to talk to Marty.
I can't wait to talk to him later to set it up.
If you want to talk to us, you all right?
Yeah. She pulling my finger back out.
Gonna make it
back in the socket.
Okay. If you want to talk to us, you can hit us up on YouTube comments. People are going People having some feelings in the YouTube comments.
Hey,
as
oh man, Scary Gary is wild.
Yeah, as they tend to.
He kind of cooked me last week, but it was okay. He and my man Saturday, but it's okay.
You can hit us up. Yeah, Saturday was getting after you. You can hit us up on the
I can take it
show email page, thedbshow@hurrdatsports.com, or you can do like Cody's doing and get in touch with us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. Cody, what do we have going on today?
Well, we're going to complain about Nebraska fans.
Okay.
I didn't know that Colorado already won the national title and Sanders won the Heisman. I thought we were supposed to hate Colorado. I mean, isn't it supposed to be rivalry week? And what's going on? Talk about overreaction.
Is that your sphere of influence is all in on Colorado, Cody?
What's that?
Your sphere, your folks in your circle are all in on Colorado?
Yeah, folks, and I would say a good 50% of social media buddies texting me.
Vegas is banking on it too.
Yeah. And then next thing, TCU, Washington, Montana, Clemson, numerous. I watched a lot of football this weekend.
Yeah.
Why are we not going under center on the 1 yard line?
It's
Nebraska tried and they got a false start.
Again, though,
yeah.
That's one where you kind of want to take your time and just get it right, do it right.
Yeah, in the moment, I was like, just take the time out. Just take the time out, man.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just take the time out.
I know you guys got a lot going on, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling in. But the last thing, because I know you're not going to talk about it the rest of the week, quick pick for the game of the week. Who you taking? South Dakota State, Montana State.
God, that is tough. Montana State.
I'm going to ride with the local
Robbie?
South Dakota State.
All right. Colton Tilford's going to lead the way.
Listen, how good is that dude, though? Like, let's be honest. Do you know how close Nebraska was to getting him as a PWO? But I mean, I get why he did what he had to do. I mean, that is the defending national champs, and it's free. But
free is good. I like free.
He's a stud.
Yeah. So if you guys want to spend the rest of the week talking Nebraska fans off the rocker and remind them this is our rival, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
we'll see what we can do.
Hey,
for
Cody.
You, Cody.
Cody, let me ask you one more thing.
Okay.
More surprised that Millard South handled Elkhorn South the way they did, or that Millard West took care of business against North?
I am so happy you asked, because I've been calling in for a month now, and every time I've brought up Millard West, and I've texted you that Jackson is the best football player not getting talked about in this entire state.
I'm 100% agreement with you.
Baseball.
I agree.
And yes, Millard South dominated, but they dominated a team without Carson Ronner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Cody. Enjoy the week.
I will say, Central surprised me. They got some athletes.
Hey, listen. I know one thing though. That was an impressive win from Gretna. That was one of the first scores I looked at. I can't wait to go back and watch.
Yeah, big one Friday. You guys have a good week.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, Cody.
Gretna handled Central.
They really did. What was it, 49-28, something like that? Yeah, they got after it.
Yeah.
Thought people might have been a little early on Central.
Maybe.
A little bit
They
early.
are young.
We've got Ramon.
Think Ramon rather be a chest beater?
I wonder, back on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Ramon, what do you got for us?
What's up, fellas? I didn't even plan on calling today, but the chest beater versus the angry argument, I had to get in on real quick.
Okay, what do you got for me?
I want to frame it for people from Nebraska in a different way.
Okay.
I'd rather be Team Crawford than Team Spence every day of the week. And I know, and I'm not talking about just the difference in skills, because we all know around here Crawford's better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about Crawford's coming to the rematch, and for we know that he's already won. So you have to prove to us that you can beat us, compared to hoping you can do something different. So I'd rather be the chest beater every day.
A chest beater all day long. Put one on the board for the team who's hopefully the ink will still be wet on their fingertips from reading about themselves all week.
And I understand the motivation behind being angry and what people are saying, but still, you have to do something different than you did before versus
what about
already proved.
how much is humility worth? Like, because I'm pretty sure Nebraska was humbled, that staff.
I think it's worth a lot, but what if we get humbled again? Then how much is it worth?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, at some point it stops being humbling.
I can only take one piece of humble pie at a time, Ramon.
Yeah. After a while, you're gonna get diabetes.
Wow. All right, Ramon. Appreciate the call.
All right, we've just lining up the callers.
Wow,
appreciate
sir.
you, Ramon.
Wow,
our old friend Kim calling into the show on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline.
First time, long time.
Kim, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Kim,
what's
up?
Kim?
I am so happy that my two favorites are together.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But can we rename the show?
Yeah, you can do whatever you like. It's your world.
Can we name it the Shane Schillenberg Show?
Absolutely.
Damon and Robbie?
100%. He is the star. Go ahead, Go ahead, then, Shane.
That would make Damon infinitely more comfortable.
Wait.
You
If
funny, man.
If that makes Damon comfortable, I don't want to do that.
Oh, fudge.
I like to keep Damon uncomfortable because sometimes he just goes, off the rails when he's uncomfortable.
I don't even say the name of the show.
Yeah, that's my job.
Woo. Kim, we appreciate it. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what Westside is doing over there, but y'all are cranking out some. Well, y'all are cranking out some athletes, man. I went and saw Creighton play volleyball this weekend.
Yep.
And that Westside gal is amazing for a freshman.
You know what? And she was so underappreciated. She was one of my favorites in the hallway. Like quietly, they're building something really, really good over there, Kim.
Oh yeah, I mean she was amazing, and I looked at my husband. I'm like, she's just a freshman.
Yeah, she was kind of dinged up all last year. She's going to be sensational.
Yeah, they've got a lot of freshmen over on that volleyball program that are going to be pretty good.
Appreciate the call.
I don't know. Yeah.
We appreciate you, Kim.
Yeah, and we still love Mason Miller, Robbie.
Always. Ride or die.
President of the fan club.
Ride or die. We'll see him. I'm excited for the fall. We'll see him this fall. I'm excited.
It's exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. And one more here on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. We've got Gary with a running back question, Shane says.
What do we know
Gary,
about running backs?
What do we have?
Hello, good morning, gentlemen.
Hi, Gary.
Mr. Benning.
Yes, sir.
What was wrong with Ramir Johnson and Irvin
and crunch
running
time?
The ball during that key situation when we put a guy in that got demoted down to 3 because he fumbles.
Okay, I'll answer that. Is that that's pretty to the point, Gary? You know what I think happened? I don't want to speak for the coaches, but I think they were telling us who they thought the best guy was going to be in that situation. I know we can disagree with it, but that's the only thing that I can think of is that's the guy that they thought gave them the best. So there must be something that he does well enough where they got over the risk reward of him putting it on the carpet.
Okay.
That's
Thanks,
it.
sir.
You got it.
Thank you, Gary.
You know what I mean?
No, I do.
I think we
talked about this a little bit last week, right? On Friday after the game. Is this when Saturday was lighting me up? Yes. Okay. And I think, correct me if I'm misrepresenting here, I think the way you laid it out was certain run plays or concepts you felt like they liked Anthony Grant a little bit better for.
Yes.
And so they put him in for that situation because they thought, my big thing is put guys in situations to succeed.
Right.
They thought if they put Gabe Ervin in that situation to do that particular play, they're not putting Gabe Ervin in a good position to succeed, and vice versa. They are putting Anthony Grant in a position to succeed.
And you know what's funny?
Mm-hmm.
He almost had a spectacular run.
Everything was great until the end.
But
there's a certain
and
point,
like, it's just not worth it.
There's a certain point, and we have to ask this question about Jeff Sims as well, is even if you're putting them in a position to succeed and they still fail, you might have to call different plays.
Or how many chances do you give it before you pull the plug?
Coming up next, we've got our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald here on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes.
The things that we teach, track in the near hip, all the different fundamentals that we believe in, they show up in these games, right? What has a tendency to happen when it goes that fast, guys start to get sloppy. And this, for our guys, they're going to have to make this football. This has to be football. This can't be about tempo. This can't be about altitude. This can't be about playing a ranked opponent or being on the road. It just has to be football. And if we do that, that's what we've done all training camp. We'll have a chance. There's obviously a lot of questions about how would the 3-3-5 stack up to big people. I thought, we handled the run game in the last game pretty well. This is, as you said, a whole unique challenge, right? Maybe more designed for the 3-3-5, So we'll just have to play well, though. It's going to be football. We have to play good football. And this, for our guys that
We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
And this, for our guys, they're going to have to make this football. This has to be football. This can't be about tempo. This can't be about altitude. This can't be about playing a ranked opponent or being on the road. It just has to be football. And if we do that, that's what we've done on training camp. We'll have a chance. There's obviously a lot of questions about how would the 3-3-5 stack up to big people. I thought, we handled the run game in the last game pretty well. This is, as you said, a whole unique challenge, right? Maybe more designed for the 3-3-5, So we'll just have to play well, though. It's going to be football. We have to play good football.
Joining us now on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla is our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you today?
Pretty good. How are you?
Well, good morning, Sam.
We're feeling a little I don't know what's the word.
Black couchish. We're putting folks on the black couch, Sam.
Oh, we're going therapy sessions today.
I'm curious though, Sam. From an emotional standpoint, I kind of phrased it, would you rather be the guys beating their chests, reading about themselves all week, or the team that is a little angry and a little embarrassed after a performance?
I think if you're just asking that question in a vacuum, probably the second one, because I guess if it were Ohio State and Nebraska, I'd rather be Ohio State, but or Ohio State.
And you're saying that because you're not so sure how good Colorado really is, or why do you use Ohio State as the example?
Well, what I'm saying is that it depends on the players who are beating their chest. Like if it's Ohio State 2019, I'll take them, regardless of what their attitude is. No, I don't know. It's specific to this matchup. I think Nebraska probably would have approached this game either way, probably the same way, once they watch Colorado on Saturday. This game is even if Nebraska had beaten Minnesota, I think they would have watched the game on Saturday, which I'm sure they already did. And they can be angry about what happened with Minnesota, but that really doesn't matter. What happened in that game so doesn't matter now. They know what the challenge is ahead of them. I think it's pretty clear what the challenge is. Doesn't mean that Nebraska can't win. I think Nebraska has a good chance of winning. But now they know what Colorado is going to try to do, what they can do, what their threat is. And I'm guessing if they're smart, if Nebraska players are smart, and I assume they are, it's like the Minnesota game never even happened. And everything is focused on if you're a defensive player, okay, what's going to be the pressure gauge that we're going to decide to dial up on the quarterback from, let's say, 1 to 10, and what does that mean for our secondary? And then on the offensive side of the ball, maybe you do think a little bit about Minnesota and say, okay, that isn't what we want to do ever again. We don't want to have that operation with 4 turnovers and that kind of crap in the red zone and false starts when you can't have them. They had 2 false starts inside the 10. We have to do everything we can do to not have that happen again, because the offense's role on Saturday is really crucial. Like, the offense has a great opportunity to help its defense by methodically driving the ball and keeping it away from Colorado's offense. Nebraska's defense has an enormous challenge in front of it, and that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing that they will go into Saturday's game going, okay, we kind of know what they're going to do. Colorado's not complex per se schematically.
Man, is that 100% accurate?
But they're going to be very hard to stop because, again, that pressure gauge is the key. In the first half, TCU only gave up 17 points. I would argue that TCU schematically and philosophically played better in the second half on defense than they did in the first half, but they were tired and they couldn't do the things in the second half that they needed to to down the field. And Colorado was able to make some plays down the field. When TCU turned up the pressure, their defense looked better, but it took too long to get there. It took them. They had to give up 24 points before they decided, hey, maybe we need to stop acting like, this quarterback is going to run around all of us, because he doesn't do that.
That's not what he did. And you know what's funny? It's kind of a misnomer.
Mm-hmm.
I get the whole African American quarterback athletic thing, but Shador's not trying to run.
No, he's a good pocket passer. I thought he made good decisions. I was very impressed with the some of the throws that he made. His ability to kind of climb the pocket. He's not going to outrun a lot of people. He's not getting around the corner per se, and he's not going to be super dangerous, I think, in that way. But he didn't make any mistakes, really, and he threw the ball he knew where to go with the ball. So they brought a blitz on a 3rd and whatever, and he threw it that deep ball down the right sideline. And then it was 3rd and 16. Game was almost over. TCU gets a stop there. I think it's over. I think Colorado loses, and he throws it right up the seam to Travis Hunter. And Hunter makes a great play. And Hunter's the best player on the football team.
I just don't think you're going to make a living getting a lot of 50-50 balls.
True. This is true. He's the best player on the team, though. And they're going to have to, figure out where he's at, and tackle him.
You know what they have to do is they have to be true to who they want to be. They have to make linebackers cover and make cornerbacks tackle. They have to make Travis Hunter fit in the run game. You watch, that is something to keep an eye on. What kind of toll is what Nebraska does on offense due to Travis Hunter defensively?
Sure. Yep, TCU was not willing to explore that very closely. Kendall Briles, man, he should take a salary cut after that game for TCU. They're going to kick themselves really hard, and the reality is, if you think you're the better team, you always think to yourself, we're just going to do what we do.
Yep.
We win by 4. We win by 4. Man, that you talk about a game where if TCU just checks itself a little bit and says, okay, now we understand who these guys are, and we understand that they're not just going to lay down for us. We need to change who we are. And just for one game, and then we'll go back to beating Kansas 63-60 or whatever.
Okay, Sam, let me stay right there. And this is just as an example in the Minnesota game. I said on the broadcast, I don't think what Minnesota was doing on 3rd down is sustainable, converting all those 3rd and more than 7s, right? I think 4 of their first 6 were of 7 yards or more that they were converting. I said, that's a little bit of fool's gold. They're going to have to eventually figure out how to run the ball. Turned out they didn't, and it was fool's gold, right? With Nebraska, is fool's gold the quarterback run game, or is it just how they have to play?
Oh, I think they're going to have to run the quarterback some. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to.
You understand why I asked the question? Because if you're going to be built for the long, you just use the example. Do what you do for one game, get through it, or so where are you on that spectrum?
Well, I think they're probably going to have to run the quarterback to some degree. Just based on what I felt like I saw, it's possible that they can hand the ball off and then just play action off of that. But I think my concern level over where Sims as a passer is high enough to where I would say you've got to utilize his legs in order to maximize what you're going to get from him. He lacks touch. Now, maybe that was a one-game thing, but the ball comes off awfully flat. Alex Bullock pulled one off the turf. IBC pulled one off the turf. The balls just come out low, and that's okay. Except when you're trying to throw the ball over the middle, you have to be able to layer it, so to speak, and he struggles with that. I mean, that's just the reality. And he's gonna have to find a way through it, and they're gonna have to throw the ball outside the number. Well, not of course outside the numbers, but outside the hash mark. They have to complete some passes too. They got to find a way to to widen the field. Maybe they held back some of their screen plays, bubble screens or tunnel screens or whatever. Maybe they held back some of those.
I'm almost just the opposite. I think if they want to control the second level backers, their intermediate passing game between the hashes has to improve. I don't know if they want him. Yeah. I don't know if they want the ball. They think that's in harm's way. But how else are you going to manipulate the second level unless you make them honor it? I mean, you see how fast Minnesota's linebackers got to fit in the run game?
I agree with you that they need to hit more passes between the hashes, but that's going to be hard when somebody's throwing the ball on a second base to first base line. You have to throw the ball with a little bit more. I mean, he's 6'4", and he's throwing it like he's not that, and that's the area that has to. Or you're going to have Thomas Fedoni as that target and not Billy Kemp. Like Billy Kemp is 5'9". You can't throw a 6'6" pass to a 5'9" guy, and so maybe that's Fedoni. Maybe that's somebody else over the middle. They've got to find a way to hit some taller receivers over the middle. Otherwise, I think you're asking Sims
or just throw the ball when they're open, right? Like you don't have to throw a skinny on the backside post. You can throw a stick route to a wide or to a tight end, right? Like sure. Yeah. You could have just thrown the ball to Borkacher in the end zone.
Yes.
Like
why didn't he?
So Sam, that's kind of my question.
You know what's funny?
We should have asked him.
No,
but,
listen,
I don't know why he didn't.
He's reading the flat defense. He's got to read number 2. The defender sank and he baited him into that throw. Like so like if you break it down, yeah, Borkacher came open, but he is supposed to read the flat defender. So if you look, the defender's looking right at him. Mm-hmm. He falls off to take the corner route to the back of the end zone, as opposed to just throwing it to Borkacher. He thought when he saw the this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think when he saw the defender settle, he was thinking corner route the whole time. But look how he fell off to make that play. He came off his initial his defender came off the initial receiver and fell back into the corner route. That's what I think happened.
I think that's fair. I also think the ball was thrown very flat.
It was a flat ball. Yep, you're right. It was a flat ball.
I don't know how you. I just don't. So when you're so you're going out. There's 8 seconds left, and he knows the play they're going to run, and the quarterback coach knows the play they're going to run. The offensive coach, the coordinator knows the play they're going to run. My assumption in that moment is they're like, listen, Nate Borkacher is 6'5" and whatever pounds. If he's even remotely open in the front of the end zone, throw it to him.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming Jeff Sims for any of it. I'm saying that like somewhere along the way, that conversation got lost in translation.
Mm.
And one of the things
I think when they broke the huddle, that was the intent, to be honest.
Sure. I'm sure it was. But it just has to be really emphasized in that moment of like, the one thing you know is unless someone steps in front of him, he's going to be a large target right there. The other thing I would say, and I felt very strongly about this during the game, and I still do, is on the deep pass to Tommy Hill. And this is just my opinion. I've never played quarterback. I'm not a coach, all the rest. On the deep pass to Tommy Hill, I would rather that play was on the other side of the 50 so that the quarterback knows mentally, I'm throwing that into the end zone. Mm-hmm. I'm not throwing it to an indeterminate space before the end zone. I have to throw it all the way to the end zone. So there's no question about whether it's going to be overthrown, underthrown, because you're throwing it to a spot about 6 yards from the goalpost.
See,
right?
that one was more, he made the mistake left to right than north and south. That ball had to stay along the near goalpost. Like, because, in those passing things, Sam, it's like throwing it down the hallway, right? Where his ball went to the far goalpost. On that skinny, it's got to stay near the near goalpost. If he throws it near the near goalpost, he can go get that. So not only was it far, it was to his right too, which increased the distance that he had to run.
Cover, yeah.
If you know what I mean, if it stays up the hash, that's And that's his aiming point, I would believe. I bet you $1 to a dime, like that thing's got to be along the near post. Do you know what I mean when I say that, like the goalpost? That's where that ball's got to go. That's where that ball's got to go.
Yeah.
Because you keep the backside safety out of it too.
That makes sense. That was a big play in the game because they were right. They got the play they wanted. Again, there were just things within the context of the game that were concerning from a passing standpoint. There's guys open, but the ball's flat, or there's guys open, but the ball wasn't thrown in quite the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in this offense that they're running, you've got to have, there's either got to be, you know, I'm going to get the ball out, I'm going to get the 4 yards kind of throws, or you'd better be really accurate. And so I think they've got a lot to work on offense, but I think this week they can run the ball against Colorado. So hopefully they can do that and not have to worry too much about, hey, how do we win this game throwing 32 passes? They may not have to worry about that.
Especially with Colorado's front.
Sam, I've been thinking a lot about this concept that I think the best playmakers for Nebraska tend to work the middle of the field, whether it's Borkacher, Fedoni, Kemp, even kind of in that slot spot, Bonner, Liebentritt, whoever. A lot of those guys that we like on offense are kind of middle of the field guys. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, Marcus Washington may be the best receiver on the team. So yeah.
Sure.
God, I've said, I'm with.
But a lot of the guys we like,
I'm with you.
They got to play him now.
I'm with you.
A lot of the guys we like are most of their routes would be in the middle of the field. And then we've got a quarterback. Nebraska's got a quarterback where I don't know that we feel terribly confident about him seeing the middle of the field well. If you're Nebraska, how do you try and get the ball to those playmakers without putting Jeff Sims in a position where he does have to layer a ball or figure out how to get that intermediate middle of the field passing game where I just have zero confidence in him right now at all?
Yeah, I mean,
how do you really feel?
There's only so much I can speak to. I mean, I'm not a coach, so like, I'm guessing there are things that they're going to work on that help him to. I don't know. Like you're gonna have to complete passes over the middle. There's not much of a choice there. You have to find a way to widen the field at the same time. Certainly, you can say, hey, you know, when you hit your back foot on your drop, throw the ball and just be comfortable with getting 4. And if it's just 4 and he gets tackled, but it's 4, it's 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 10. The one cool thing about Colorado is when they throw a 4-yard pass, it may not be a 4-yard gain. It could be 16 because those guys will make somebody miss. Borkacher's not going to make a bunch of guys miss. Neither is Fedoni. But they can be good targets, you know, early in a route. There's some things that they can try to accomplish there. You know, I think you try to find a way, again, to widen the field. You bring some motion. You know, Jalen Lloyd has shown that he can get an end around. Maybe you bring him around on something and you have a safety watching, and then you bring something over the middle. By the way, if Jalen Lloyd stays outside on that run, does he score?
Yeah, he might house it. He may house that if he just kind of slices that thing to his right. He may crease that thing.
So this is a freshman thing, I think. I'm not sure Jalen Lloyd realized that Nate Borkacher was fast enough to get outside and make that block.
Yeah,
because he cuts inside of it, and if Jalen just keeps on that track, let's say he's Alonzo Moore, right? Alonzo takes that all the way on the outside. He's about 2 inches from the sideline, but he runs all the way up the sideline, and he probably scores. Brandon Riley may do the same thing. I think Jalen Lloyd's just learning that. Like, you don't know that the first time you make that play. You know, and I think he cut it up, and he actually probably made a good decision based on what he saw. But I knew the play was based to go outside because that's what Borkacher went. The Borkacher goes to seal it, which means that the play is meant to go all the way to the edge, and next time he'll know that. And maybe he'll take it all the way to the edge, and it'll be a touchdown. Alonzo Moore scored a couple times on that. I think Mike Riley taught that play really well.
You know, that's interesting too.
From having, go ahead.
That's interesting too, because as a young guy, you're taught to, hey, just get vertical, right? Like The quickest way there is a straight line. And I think you're right in that just the inexperience in doing exactly what you're supposed to, because that's the safest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he'll grow into being more creative in terms of reading it. I actually thought there were a couple of plays that Nebraska really left on the field had they kind of read it differently, right? I'm just going back through this run game, and it was poor at the line of scrimmage initially in some, but a cut here or a cut there, I think changed that thing quite a bit. But I got to ask you, Sam, because I do think this game is more about emotions than scheme.
Sure.
Who can control theirs the best, right? The team with, all the bravado and brash, or the humility, like how can that work to an advantage? If you're Nebraska and you have what happened to you in Minnesota, wouldn't you rather Colorado do what they did coming into this one if you're going to draw it up? Like, somehow in my head, I think this is, if you're going to lose, I think this is the best case scenario in which to have to deal with coming off a loss, because you still feel like you're in control.
Yes. Yep. I think this is a good way to go because.
And I'm not saying lose, you know what I mean? Hear my heart there, but.
Right. Oh, no. If the pressure has shifted. Nebraska will not be going to Colorado thinking to itself, oh, God, we got to go beat these guys because they suck. They don't have to feel that way. They can go into that game.
100%.
They can go to Colorado thinking this team's going to be ranked, and everybody thinks they're the greatest team in the world. So we don't have to worry about making a mistake. They're expected now to win the game. They're all world over there, and they're going to talk that game too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can feel free to play like the underdogs that we are, and you can match their emotions. You don't have to, be like, oh no, we fell behind 14-0. This team just lost by 50. What's wrong with us? No, you can say, if you do fall behind 14-0, yeah, this team's good. So now we got to play better. I think, yeah, absolutely. I think in Nebraska's the pressure, the pendulum shifted from Nebraska better not lose to Nebraska's probably going to lose unless they play really well, which frees you up to play really well.
That's our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. We appreciate you as always. Sam, we'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
That's Sam McKewon. He joined us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. I want to tell you about our friends at the Warhorse Sportsbook real quick. They're the only place in Nebraska where sports bets can be placed. You have to be at the casino in person to place those bets at the Warhorse Sportsbook. Plenty of kiosks and tellers to take your wagers. You can get the Warhorse Casino app, build all your bets together, and then go to the casino, scan the QR code, and place your wager there. All major sporting events or almost every major sporting event, you can get those bets in. Go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or get the Warhorse Casino app for more details. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Coming up next, we've got the Sports Six-Pack right here on Benning and Lulla.
The show will be back in 5 minutes. The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Time now for the Sports Six-Pack, presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
Here we go with the Sports Six-Pack here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Obviously brought to our friends at Zipline. Their Dear Old Nebraska Brew is available at their taproom locations in Lincoln and Omaha. You can go to the downtown Omaha taproom or the beer lounge out on 203rd Plaza. They've also got the beer hall in South Lincoln. Make sure you go check out our friends at Zipline. Shane, let's get it cracking.
Question number 1.
Who moved the needle for you the most this weekend, good or bad?
So we had some surprises, right?
Yes, we did. I'm going to go with, so there were a couple things I was right about. Keep an eye on Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
They moved my needle.
Okay.
Flew under the radar.
Sunday afternoon game.
Uiagalelei was using his legs. I think Oregon State will play good defense. They weren't returning a ton defensively, so I was a little concerned. But Oregon State is the clear dark horse, in my opinion, in the Pac-12. That moved my needle. I loved Tulane, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pratt's the real deal. Their quarterback.
Yeah, he's legit.
And this may be an unpopular opinion.
Okay.
Because he's so gifted. But why would I love to see Caleb Williams stay on schedule more?
Ooh, okay.
The fact that he's so playgroundy bugs me a little.
It can feel a little unsustainable at times.
Should I let this move my needle? Will Iowa not be able to run the ball?
Yeah, that's a concern because if they can't run the ball, it doesn't matter.
Because Caleb Johnson, he's talented.
Yeah, and
I was floored at that.
And if you're not running against Utah State, you're probably not running it in the Big Ten.
And I said that there are two states that were better than people thought.
Utah
State and Fresno State.
What do we see there? Fresno State knocks off Purdue, and Utah State makes sure that Brian Ferentz stays below keep his job goal.
Although McNamara looked
okay.
All right.
He looked okay. For me, so all the way up until last night, my answer was going to be Florida State, just because I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah,
like I thought they might win. I didn't think they were going to house them.
They were dynamic.
And then last night, so that was.
How about how they settled in to run the football in the second half?
Listen, people forget that Mike Norvell's offense can be real run heavy. Yeah. And pretty dynamic that way.
They ran the ball in the second half.
They have a ton of creative run concepts in that offense. But then last night happened, and Clemson swung the other way for me, moving the needle for the bad. That offense.
Klubnik just doesn't look comfortable.
No. And talk about self-destructing.
And I talked myself out of it. I was like, he was throwing picks in their spring game. Like,
he was. And you're like, oh, maybe the defense is just that good.
Yeah. But that's exactly what I thought.
They're fumbling it in the red zone constantly and giving themselves, just shooting themselves in the foot, not giving themselves opportunities to put points on the board. And then Duke kind of wore them down.
I'm telling you, I can tell by how Duke recruits. Elko's the real deal.
They were physical.
Elko is the real deal.
They were super physical. Honestly, they looked like.
I just ain't trying to go see no games there.
No, I'm good.
They're out.
I'm good on that. They looked like when Northwestern was good under Fitzgerald.
I'm telling you.
Is what it looked like.
You talk about quarterbacks giving you hope.
Yeah.
They look nice.
He was kind of shaky throwing the ball. I think he ends up only going 17 for 34, but really dynamic with his legs as well. Gave them a ton of opportunities. Obviously, they knock off Clemson there. All right, what's next, Shane?
Question number 2.
Do you understand
the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Exactly. The frustration of Husker fans who see Colorado go from possibly the worst Power 5 team to a road win over a ranked opponent in week number 1.
No.
I feel like I should be yelling that question.
No, I don't.
You don't understand any frustration at all.
I don't. I guess it starts with my frame of reference.
Okay.
I didn't like TCU.
Fair.
And I didn't think Colorado's roster was bad.
No, I didn't think their roster was bad. I thought it would take some time to get together.
Yeah. And it still might.
It might still.
So what are you going? You have them winning 5 games now instead of 4?
I think if they went 6-6, it would be a phenomenal year for them.
Yeah.
But kind of at Nebraska, that would be a pretty big win too, going 6-6, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess I understand the frustration. I don't share it, but it's really, I think a lot of Nebraska fans have a really hard time digesting the fact that, hey, they were so much worse off than we were. And then they go in and listen, I don't think TCU is special. In fact, I think they're pretty bad this year, especially on defense. But you go in on the road to a conference opponent and get a win in a game that you're not supposed to win. You're a huge underdog, and Nebraska has just gone through what they went through at Minnesota. I understand the frustration. I don't share it, but I get it.
I'll ride with you on
Is that fair?
I'll ride with you. I'll be in the sidecar.
Do you understand how good this zip line is right now?
Have another.
Dear old Nebraska Brew. Let's go.
Question number 3.
What was the biggest positive you took away from the Nebraska game?
Yeah, I'm trying to be positive here. What did you like?
Helmets to the ball. Defensively, I feel like that linebacking core is continuing to grow and evolve, and the secondary will rally. Now, I like, Herzog is going to have to get a little better understanding his leverage,
because that's what cost him on the last play.
It was a leverage deal, right?
And it was a great route, but if he's committed to keeping outside leverage, that never happens.
Oh, where am I vulnerable?
Where's my help?
So that I like Nebraska's physicality on defense. I think that's portable. I'm a little bummed because with all the targeting calls I saw overturned this weekend, I thought the Ty Robinson one still bugs me.
Honestly, what got him?
I know
it's the head dip,
but
he barely made contact with the head.
We see better than we hear, right?
I know.
It was a push, not a headbutt.
But because he pushed,
doesn't matter,
and dipped the head. Listen, perception is reality, right?
No, because you were afforded the luxury of actually watching.
Well, that's fair.
But you know what I mean? You can actually see it. I get what you think you saw.
Yeah.
I watched one get overturned in the Northwestern Rutgers game. I couldn't believe. I was like, oh my gosh, they got that one right because they used some common sense.
Yeah, you would think with the replay, I could understand on the field how it was called a targeting.
100%.
With the replay, you'd like to be able to say, okay, it is roughing the passer because he shoves him, but he doesn't really make contact with the head.
Yeah, maybe I'm still mad about that's the one that they called against Westside
2 weeks ago now.
Yes, I'm still thinking about that.
That's fine. All right,
Shado.
Let's try and get to 4 here.
Question number
We're moving.
4.
Trying.
What is the bigger concern in the passing game? Sim reading through his progressions. Are the receivers getting open?
Legit question.
Is that a fair question?
Legit.
Pretty solid. Seems like we've heard that.
I'm gonna go with the progressions because I think guys can get open.
I do too.
I'm gonna go with the progressions
because we saw some guys get open. Right, we saw Tommy Hill running free. We saw Malachi Coleman running free. We saw Borkacher get open in the middle in the end zone.
Kemp was wide open on the RPO.
We had Kemp open where the ball gets batted down. Some guys were getting open. Listen, I'm not saying it's a real dynamic receiving core, right? But there were enough guys getting open that if he's seeing the defenders and seeing the field well, I think the passing game would have looked a lot different. So that's my concern.
I'm with you. That's actually legit.
Him not seeing defenders scares me.
Looking off guys. Not panicking.
Being able to move the safeties with his eyes instead of just locking onto a guy.
That's fair.
That is my biggest concern right now. Shane, let's try and squeeze one more in.
Question number 5.
What is your favorite non-sports related thing you did this weekend?
Did you do any non-sports related things, Damon?
My favorite non-sports related weekend of the weekend was I spent about 6 hours with DJ Rizek.
There you go. That's fun.
I feel better about life.
I got to hang out with Stibbs and our buddy Alex Sindelar.
Yeah. Is Alex as funny in person?
Oh, he's terrific.
He seems like
he's better in person.
He seems like he would be hilarious.
You could have come and found out, but you were like, "Nah, I'm good."
I had to eat, man.
Nah, I'm cool.
I spent like 4 hours at the comic book store.
Ooh, yeah, that's
4
not
hours
sports related.
Oh man,
They took those comic books back after you fingered them all up.
Nah, I keep them.
I don't think you're allowed to do that at the comic book store.
Jeez,
we've
buy
got
something. Would you
finish up the Zipline Sports Six Pack coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Question number 6.
Right, just coming right back into it, huh? Hey, welcome back.
I guess I don't have to worry about bumping us back in. Go on, Shane. It's your world. We're just living in it.
I got drinking to do. Come on.
All right, let's go.
Oh, shoot. Welcome back.
Better 3-day weekend, Memorial Day or Labor Day?
I'm going to go with Labor Day because of
college
football.
So that's why it's a little difficult, right? Because I love it's kind of the opening. I know it's not always the opening weekend, but you get the Saturday, Sunday, Monday marquee games, right? But I kind of like the unofficial start of summer on my Memorial Day. Summer's my favorite time of year. So
it is because you get to go be bougie on the boat with the.
Well, I also don't like cold weather. I like being out.
I like deck shoes.
I like going and playing some pickleball outside. You can
listen to the Yacht Rock any time of the year.
I know.
Doesn't have to be
this dude in his Yacht Rock.
I'm kind of, I think I'm a Memorial Day guy, despite loving college football.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to go Memorial Day.
You and Christopher Cross sailing, take me away. Shane, that's our guy, right?
I thought you were going to go Sticks on me. Come sail away.
No, come sail. No, I'm not a Sticks guy.
I like that song.
Yeah,
but
were you out on Mr. Roboto?
Yeah, it's kind of meh.
Are you just all into sailing songs?
Oh, maybe
not exclusively. I like other songs.
Do you listen to the Yacht
Where you
Rock
have your
when
caviar
you
and brie cheese with the Virginia Cavalier fans and stuff?
No, what did I send you a picture of the the steak with the lobster with the caviar on top.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little bougie.
It was good, though.
Must be nice. Double income, no kids. Oh, to be a dink.
Yeah, you got to think about that next time, my guy.
Wow. If I had it to do over again.
That is our Zipline Sports six-pack. We appreciate our friends at Zipline. Make sure you try out their dear old Nebraska brew. All right, there was
my ankles are kind of ashy, man. I need some lotion.
Yeah, well, you shower like 18 times a day. That dries out your skin. You got to be vigilant.
Listen, and
you got to be vigilant about the lotion.
I got caught up using Dial because I didn't want to get out of the shower once I started, and I didn't go get my other soap because under the sink. You know, Dial is like old school cheap.
Yeah,
I don't use it.
It's not like moisturizing while you're using it.
Nah.
Yeah, man, you gotta take care of that.
It's kind of feeling a little.
You a little self-conscious?
Yeah.
It's a good thing the ankles aren't on camera,
Right.
you know?
Kicking flowers.
Just keep seated, you know? You don't want to show off those ashy ankles.
No.
No.
I'm done. Oh, man.
There was a lot happening in college football this week.
Yeah, like some eyebrow raisers, some to the good, some to the bad.
So you had the obvious ones, right? Florida State's an obvious one. Clemson, Duke's an obvious one. Colorado's an obvious one, right?
Yeah.
So let's go a little deeper cut on these.
Oh, deep cut.
Right? I'm watching Washington, and you were as well, because one of the things you said to me is, Penix really just gonna be that guy? I didn't even realize. So they're showing some of his numbers from last year. I was like, what do you mean that dude threw for 4,000 yards?
So can I just say something?
Yeah.
Because you brought up Penix.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 2 years ago, I was wrong on Penix.
Okay.
I liked him coming off the Indiana year where I felt like he could be the dude. Remember the dive at the pylon?
Yep, against what, Penn State?
Yeah. And the very next, he just stopped being able to take care of the ball.
Yeah.
Right? They turned the ball over.
Where have we seen that before?
He couldn't throw. He couldn't complete balls. He wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, man, I can't believe I was in love with that dude. Like he totally had me.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana couldn't get off the field on third downs. Like they were bad, right?
Yes, really bad.
This dude goes to Washington and he's playing his way into being a first-round draft pick. Can a leopard change his spots, or was that an anomaly?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right?
I mean, this dude is just taking shot play after shot play down the field for Wisconsin, and dudes are running wide open.
Well, and you look at this guy, and you look at
And quietly, they may have one of the best receiving corps in the country.
Yeah.
I know some other popular schools get love, but Washington's got some dudes.
I mean,
how about my dude Will Nixon?
Florida.
I loved him at Nebraska.
Yeah. Florida State certainly made a claim to that on Sunday night for best receivers in the country with Coleman and Wilson.
I mean, they were going against a bunch of 5'8" guys, but still.
I mean, they're 6'5" and 6'7". A lot of guys are going to feel like 5'8". You know what I mean? Like 6'5" and 6'7" is stupid size on the outside.
And a couple of those, like the one in the corner of the end zone, they were like raving about Keon. I was like, the throw was better than the catch. He didn't even have to go get it.
Some of those throws were just.
He didn't even have to go. It's not like he barely left the ground.
Yes.
It was back. So he just.
Well, and that kind of. So that brings up Jordan Travis, who I think I appreciate in a way similar to Michael Penix, right? Because as I watched Penix kind of throw the ball his first couple years at Indiana, I'm like, I don't know if that's an arm you can count on.
Right.
I watched Jordan Travis in his year at Louisville and his first year at Florida State, and I'm looking like,
I don't even love his throwing motion.
No, I'm like, man, I hope the legs translate, right? Because if they don't, you're in trouble. And then those are two guys, which is why I had some hope for Jeff Sims, right? For, change.
Yeah, you talked me off the ledge in your podcast.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't on the ledge. I was asking a hypothetical that you gave a very good answer to.
So you look at these guys and bring it back home. Yeah, I don't have anything. I got nothing.
Appreciate the support.
I got nothing for you. But I bring it back to one of your guys at Westside, and Anthony Rizak, where I'm watching him as a sophomore, and I go, I don't know if I trust him to make the throws you probably need to make in order to win this football game.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the state title against Gretna.
Yeah, where they beat us 7-3.
Yeah,
that one. Okay.
And then I'm watching him last year. I'm watching Jordan Travis last year. I'm watching Michael Penix last year. And those are three guys that I go, hey, I always kind of liked them as athletes. All of a sudden, they learn how to throw the football on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Penix and Jordan Travis, just their numbers shoot off to a whole other level. I don't know what cumulatively your A-Train's numbers are going to look like or what they looked like last year, but just watching that dude.
He's a 2,500,000 guy.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That'll get it done.
Like, are we acting like guys just go 2,000, 1,000, like no big deal?
Yeah, super common. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
But no, so even just the eye test, right?
Yeah.
I look at him and I go, okay, that's a guy I trust to make throws now.
Yeah, he's 6'4",
right? I see him in week 1 drop a dime to Caleb in the end zone. I see him week 1 getting blasted, still hitting Cotton on a go.
Yeah.
Like, that's a dude that I trust to make some throws now. I trust Michael Penix in a way that I never thought I would throwing the ball.
So can I ask you something about like this whole just assuming if we're in love with quarterbacks, who's in more trouble potentially? Clemson or Ohio State? Ohio State couldn't really run the ball either. I mean, Trayvon Henderson was like 17 for 50. And I keep hearing how good he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know if he
You know what I mean? I heard it last year, but now I know they had to play 226 different running backs.
Yeah.
But
well, so the part of the problem with Ohio State is they've got some uncertainty on that offensive line too, which
is
going to be a problem in the Big Ten.
Haven't they recruited well?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know they've recruited really well at the skill positions, or at least we thought they had. I don't know if Kyle McCord is that guy or not. He certainly doesn't look like that guy. I know they were.
And Devin Brown didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
to
they were
throw it.
hoping to get Devin Brown in, but they never got a margin enough to really. I mean, he only had it was like 1 for 3.
Do
right?
you need margins for Devin Brown? That's tough, huh?
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because they said they wanted to get him in the game, and then they didn't get him in the
I hear
game.
you.
So I look at it and say, oh, we're just not comfortable with the margin of the game to put Devin Brown in, right?
Yeah.
And so between Ohio State and Clemson, I'm probably – see, we didn't get to our predictions from college football because we were covering
The
Nebraska,
playoffs?
Minnesota. I'm kind of out on both of those teams anyway, so it's really hard for me to put a finger on. I guess I trusted Klubnik more.
So I think week 1 overreactions are just that.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that too much, but we're going to.
Caleb Johnson couldn't run the ball effectively. I think ultimately he will. Trayvon Henderson struggled. Harrison Jr. only had 2 catches. For 18 yards maybe?
Yeah, if you can't get the ball to Marvin Harrison, you got a problem.
I mean, I get Stover, right? But
come on.
I mean, he was their leading receiver.
Yeah.
And maybe some of it was scheme. I have to go back and watch.
Yeah.
But I feel better about those guys than their stats.
You don't know about Klubnik though?
No.
So that's the one.
He's probably the one.
See, I don't know how I feel about McCord though. Like if you're talking about quarterbacks only, McCord's probably in a better situation to succeed, I think, with Henderson and the wide receivers and everything like that.
More concern going forward if we're going to continue on this overreaction thing, because I think that's all week 1 is.
I love overreacting. It's my favorite.
Wisconsin or Illinois?
Wisconsin, because I think people expected more out of them. Because that was a real slow burn against Buffalo.
Yeah.
And Toledo's low-key probably going to win the MAC. That's a pretty good Toledo team.
That's a good point.
And
that's a good point.
Illinois found themselves down 19-7, and then they kind of turned it on and took over, right? After it's 19-7, they end up winning that
28-25, I was like, do they have enough offense in 5 minutes?
And they did. They got it done.
Yeah.
But they were able to overcome getting hit in the mouth a little bit by a pretty good team. I kind of look at that one the same way I do Purdue and Fresno State. Fresno State's good.
Fresno State,
Fresno State's actually good.
That didn't surprise me.
I don't know that Buffalo's going to be good.
No.
So that concerns me more.
Okay.
With Wisconsin. Although your guy, Malusi, looked way better running the football than Braylon Allen did. You told me that. That's why I said he's your guy.
I try to tell people, man, Malusi's a stud.
I think he might be a better natural runner. Coming up next, we've got our friend Mike J. Schaefer here on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes.
Yeah, certainly before the year, no one really knows. I'm here all the time, so and there's none of the cows where I live, so or not, So I don't think no one really sees me very often right now, just in the season. But obviously, I respect that tradition, right, and that history and that legacy. As I was going through the job and looking at the job, and Trev and I were talking, obviously, I respect that tradition, right, and that history and that legacy. As I was going through the job and looking at the job, and Trev and I were talking, my wife and son and I would sit down and watch on YouTube and watch all the different games, over the years, Coach Osborne, Coach McCartney, Coach Solich, Coach Barnett, all the different games that happened. And so we understand the legacy. So, when you have a legacy behind you, you have to live up to it and you have to build on it for the future. We also recognize, once the ball's kicked, we're going to have to play, and we have to play for 60 minutes.
We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Obviously, I respect that tradition, right, and that history and that legacy. As I was going through the job and looking at the job, and Trev and I were talking, my wife and son and I would sit down and watch on YouTube and watch all the different games, over the years, Coach Osborne, Coach McCartney, Coach Solich, Coach Barnett, all the different games that happened. And so we understand the legacy. So, when you have a legacy behind you, you have to live up to it and you have to build on it for the future. We also recognize, once the ball's kicked, we're going to have to play, and we have to play for 60 minutes.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on the Damon Benning Show.
It's a football term.
Kicking off?
Yeah.
Well, we do like football here.
Football.
We also like our friends over at Dyer Law. They've got you covered if you feel personally injured by the fact that Damon Benning maybe calls you out on air here and forgets people listen to us.
Well, I just was asking. I was like, is he funny? Because he seems like he would be funny. And I forget that this is live radio. Like,
that people listen.
Yeah.
But don't forget about Dyer Law.
I'm glad you didn't say he wasn't funny.
No, he's legit. He'd
have been mad at you.
Legit good dude. You can call our friends at Dyer Law 402-393-7529, DYER.law. They've got you covered for personal injury, for workers' comp, whatever you may need. Our friends at Dyer Law have you covered.
Speaking of funny guys,
who do we got?
We have our guy, Mike.
Is he here? He decided to
Mike
join us
J.
today?
Well, I don't see him.
There he is.
There he is. Good morning, Mike J. How are you?
I'm good. How are we all doing after a healthy weekend of perspective, hopefully? Maybe. Do we think we got some perspective over the weekend?
Oh,
or
we
is
love
everything still the worst that's ever happened in the history of the sport? I'm wondering.
Perfect guy to talk to.
I've been waiting for
1
about
week of
3 days
overreaction
to do this. So here we are.
All right. Which got your goat more? Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
The fact that apparently Deion Sanders' government is now prime, as in Coach Prime. The fact that Jeff Sims carrying the football on design runs is too much for anybody to handle. Or the fact that Colorado will now go from a 4-win season to a 5-win season. So therefore we should crown them. Which, like what, which, what?
Okay, so in order, we'll start with Colorado. They had it was a nice win. Like, I don't want to take away from that win. Like, they went out and they played really well, but I would be fascinated who was watching that game and thought that TCU was the number 17 team in the country. Either from
or 7D, because I would buy 7D.
Well, yeah, defensively, that might be where they're going to cap out this year. Like that, it was a super fun game. It just feels like everyone got really caught up with the fact it was Colorado's first game and they're playing a ranked team, and yet that ranked team is not going to be. I don't even know that's a bowl team for TCU.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to diminish Colorado coming out and winning, but man, if you needed a little extra gasoline after Thursday's tire fire, the Nebraska fans found it. I mean, I've never seen some people on Twitter basically just wanted the season to be over at this point. Like Nebraska can't go to Colorado and compete with that. There's no chance now. So I got a healthy dose of that on Saturday about how Nebraska just absolutely no chance competing with Colorado. I got a healthy dose of Coach Prime. Man, how great is that? We don't even have to refer to him by his last name. He's not Deion Sanders.
I can't
Transformer, right, Robbie?
Dude, remember when he was mad at the presser at how he was addressed? He's like, you don't call Nick or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's because they were calling him Deion.
So
I think
did he sign off on Coach Prime, or does that seem too shucksy, yuck it up for a national broadcast?
I mean, is it hard for anyone else to follow how respect is supposed to be given, yet Deion doesn't have to give it to the players that came before at Colorado, to the fans anywhere, to the media anywhere? Like, if respect is supposed to be given to Deion, he should offer respect to anyone else at some point. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. I don't think it's coming, though. I don't know that's part of the Deion Sanders playbook. So,
all right, so pulling up the rear is the question that kind of drew a little bit of the ire from Coach Rhule, right? Like, he felt like he had to explain why there were so many design quarterback runs. You could tell it was getting on his nerves. Are we going to be okay with Sims carrying the football a ton?
I mean, are we going to be okay with Nebraska scoring? Because I think one has to do with the other.
I mean, you're more okay with them running it a ton than you are throwing it a ton, right?
Maybe.
I mean, I don't want to, like, I don't want to use Thursday night as how the exact season is going to play out.
Like, no way you're not going to do that, Jake.
It might surprise some people.
Could you
please Minnesota's secondary could be better.
Come on.
Well, I'm just saying Minnesota's secondary might be one of the better ones Nebraska plays for most of the season. Like it might have been a bit of a challenge to start your year on the road with a new system, everything else, against a team that had a pretty good secondary. Now, I would argue Nebraska could have found more ways to stress those linebackers that hadn't played a lot in their career. But, that's hindsight. The thing is, like, if they needed to move the ball on Thursday night, Jeff Sims was their best recipe to doing that, and it was his legs, not his arm. I mean, I wish they would have ran more option at times. Like, they ran it a couple times, and it looked good. It looked like it was putting stress on those Minnesota linebackers. I mean, at this point, I think you have to figure out, like, how you're going to move the ball, and every option has to be on the table. Like, and I fully understand. I'm not expecting 12 games out of Jeff Sims if he has to run it 19 times a game. But you don't have the luxury to sit back and be like, well, we can only call 5 Jeff Sims designed runs, and then he's going to get 2 scrambles, and that's it. That's not how football works. So, I mean, if you're trying to go win a game, if you're trying to give yourself the best chance to leave with a W, then Jeff Sims' legs have to be a part of that equation, because right now the passing game is going to be a struggle. I mean, you lost Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda. It's amazing how every time there's a position that's thin for Nebraska, it just gets like absolutely savaged every year. This has been a case for like 2 decades now. But yeah, they're going to have to rely on his legs. So I think we're just going to have to accept that that's going to be a big portion of the offense until they can find other players to emerge or other things to emerge.
Have we kind of just ignored the fact that I think it was only 12 designed runs, right? He ends up with 19, 3 of them were sacks, I believe 4 were scrambles. So he's only got 12 designed runs for the first place, which is not a crazy number. It's high. It's not 19 though, right? And then you take, I think 4 or 5 of those that were read plays. So you're not even necessarily counting on him keeping it there. And all of a sudden we're at like 8 or 9, 7 or 8. Like, hey, we actually want Jeff Sims to run the ball here.
Completely fine number.
Yeah, like all of a sudden we go from 19 and it's like, but it really could have been 8. And so there's a lot baked into the 19 that I think people aren't paying attention to.
It's absolutely like, look at how that game started. Their first drive was at the 1-yard line. Like their first play was just Jeff Sims getting out of trouble. Their second
and that's
play
one
was
right there. That's
Jeff
one of the
Sims
runs.
Getting really out of trouble. Like, so I guess, we've really reached a point with Nebraska football where everything is hyper analyzed. Like everything, it doesn't matter if it's one specific statistic. It doesn't matter if it's one play. It doesn't matter if it's one formation. Like we just have to like throw everything we have into the analysis of each piece of this program. And it's largely because there's not enough winning to allow you to move off of that. So now it's just going to be hypercritical about every aspect of everything that's happening. And I'm telling you, if the fan base, whoever's listening to this, it is going to be a miserable experience if you have to do this 11 more games. And I'm not talking about how Nebraska lost. I'm talking about how the people reacted to that loss.
Extreme Mike Schaefer is the best Mike Schaefer, because now this is just too easily teed up for you because you hate extremes anyway.
Yeah, I like to live in the nuance and the gray. I love the gray. Gray neutral, baby. It goes with everything.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to Colorado in a sec. Well, let me stay right there.
Gray.
So, like, have we convinced ourselves? Is it so bad, right? Because Colorado does something against TCU, and it was basically just mesh concepts for 4 quarters of Colorado.
A lot of 7-on-7 football out there,
right? And Nebraska was really good defensively against a Big Ten caliber opponent that has been pretty good historic, since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, right? Why do we gravitate more towards what Colorado did as long-term sustainable than what Nebraska did as, man, maybe this is something they could build on?
Because Colorado shucked the trend of being a team that's gotten blown. Like they went out and they showed something.
Because they were 1-11.
And Nebraska went out and they showed that there's a lot of the same things that people saw from a previous coaching staff, from previous players. So I think there's a lot of just how it looked for Nebraska. If they lose that game 13-10 and they don't have 4 turnovers and Anthony Grant doesn't fumble and, Jeff Sims doesn't throw that awful second interception, like you just have the 2 interceptions in there.
Which one was the second one? I can't
End zone.
End zone.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
If Nebraska just lost 13-10 in whatever we would consider or perceive to be a normal fashion, I think that would help.
Just lose normal one time.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as that happening for this program. And a lot of it is just pent-up angst and desire and everything, because if you go to people and you went to them, you're like, Nebraska covers, they lose 13-10, they're in the game the entire time. I would bet you 80% of the fan base would take that ahead of Thursday's game against Minnesota. But, if you go to them and it's like, yeah, Nebraska blows another fourth quarter lead. They have multiple opportunities near the 40-yard line with a relatively short field that all they have to do is move the ball, to put up some more points and put this game away. Like it's just the way that it happens. I think the way that Colorado came out and they looked flashy, the way that Nebraska came out and they looked like a team that, and I got a lot of it on the message board. Matt Rhule said this. Matt Rhule said this. Matt Rhule said this. I mean, people are just deep into the rhetoric, and they are holding a coach accountable in the fourth quarter of the first game of his time in Nebraska's program. So apparently accountability is all the rage right now.
We're talking with Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7, who is on one this morning.
So
I've been on one for about 72, 96 hours. This has been festering.
I can't imagine running a board, right?
Yeah.
Like, running a board unto itself. And I've been like, it's happened to me, and I just occasionally peruse, right? It's like,
you should never peruse.
I know.
Everyone should always peruse, but never peruse.
All right. So which one do you get this? If we're just going to stay on this whole overreact thing, okay, which one do you think has the best chance of sticking? The fact that Iowa will struggle to run the ball like Caleb Johnson did. Illinois offensively could play like that all year. Wisconsin was a little bit of a surprise in terms of the way that they played, or Ohio State offensively will be like what we saw this weekend. All those things were a little surprising.
Yeah, I don't know if people weren't like clued into that first half of the Buffalo game. Like I said, when I talk about perspective showing itself on Saturday, Wisconsin, the off-season darling of the Big Ten West, if such a thing even exists, if there could be an off-season darling, which I don't really know that this division deserves one, but let's say that it had one. It was Wisconsin. And Phil Longo and Tanner Mordecai were going to take this offense to the next terrain, and Wisconsin was just going to look fantastic throwing the ball, and they were going to move all over the field, Luke Fickell's defense, and blah, 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 blah. Wisconsin should have been down 21-7 going into halftime in that game. They weren't, because they were playing Buffalo, because their first game out of the chute was against a MAC school that allowed them to work through some issues as they transitioned as a program. It allowed Tanner Mordecai, who looked horrible, to look horrible and not affect his team, because, oh, by the way, here's 2 running backs that had a combined 300 yards rushing, because, again, despite Maurice Linguist's best efforts, Buffalo was not able to sustain over 4 quarters. Like, part of the difficulty when you start with a conference opponent right away is it's going to be a bigger challenge. It's going to look rougher than you do it in the very first game. I mean, some of it, Illinois got to escape against Toledo. Buffalo got to prove that it's, not Buffalo, Wisconsin got to prove that you got to be a team that can last 4 quarters against them. And Buffalo couldn't. Nebraska didn't get that sort of start. And that's not to necessarily lament it. It's just that if you look around the division, and that's what matters, not what anybody in the East is doing. If you look around the division and you watch Thursday night and you watched other games on Saturday, Nebraska can play with all of these teams. You know that because you watched them play with a Minnesota team that can play with all of those teams. So perspective should have been on display Saturday if you were flipping through the channels.
You know, it's funny as I'm listening. It is all based on our perception because I told Ravi last week it was either in our 6-pack or Ravi just was creative enough to ask me on his own. He asked me about transfer quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and being you didn't use the term overrated.
No,
but
I said, who are you out on?
Yeah, who was I out on?
Yeah.
And I told who did I tell you I was out on?
Mordecai.
Tanner Mordecai.
Yeah.
I think when he gets into conference play, going from that conference to the Big Ten and the style of defense and how not open the field is.
Yeah.
Tanner Mordecai against Wisconsin against Minnesota would have thrown 3 picks.
I just
thrown more picks against Buffalo.
I didn't like him real time, like just being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do think Longo and weird, right? Like they had 40 carries, 40 for 314 yards. Longo will do what they have to do to run the football.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're not a bad team. It's just that if you get a runway start like that, you got to work through some problems and sort of find yourself in the game. If you're immediately dropped into a fight, you're just trying to survive and get to the end of the bell. And Nebraska just didn't get to the end of the bell.
I mean, it did. I mean, Michigan didn't look like, nor did Penn. Like,
no.
I don't know.
Penn State looked pretty average.
If you look like a world beater, chances are the team that you played didn't have a good week. Like you don't have to make these sweeping judgments after one game. We really don't.
Tanner,
do you not understand?
JJ McCarthy completed 80% of his passes, and Michigan was still workmanlike.
Yeah, that's kind of what Michigan has been.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think they just
workmanlike is sort of Michigan's deal.
They sometimes make it look harder than it actually is.
Yeah, but I mean, Donovan Edwards going 12 for 37.
Not great. You don't love it.
You know, like little stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to win.
Schaefer,
college football is difficult. I don't know why we need to say that 7 years into this whole experience, but this is not.
I remember I had a meltdown in my
out there and win football.
I was like, winning is hard. Like, do we not? That was like one of my moments.
I'm still going to say this. Just maybe. I'm going to put this out there. Okay. I don't think it's that hard to win 6 games. I still don't.
Think Nebraska can win 6 games. I still think Nebraska can win 7
Me
games.
too.
I agree.
Me too.
I agree. I don't think Nebraska needed to beat Minnesota to win 7 games. But I will say winning 6 games is not that hard because Lovie Smith did it. And that is a dude. I'm not even kidding you. Illinois' starting punter was returning kicks with Lovie Smith as the head coach. That is a real thing that happened, and that man made a bowl game. It is not that hard.
Do you think it's kind of like the Matt Rhule philosophy where Marcus Satterfield worked with the offensive line so he could get an experience of like when he's calling plays? If you're a punter and you have to return punts in practice, you learn like where you'd want to put the ball and how that's going to go for the returner.
No,
maybe it's just like
this wasn't like an exercise.
Lovie Smith. Have you considered that?
This wasn't an exercise. He was on the depth chart as a kick returner.
I don't know why I'm trying to defend Lovie Smith.
That man won 6 games in the Big Ten West. It is not that hard.
If you're Coach Rhule, and I really like the fact he said at some point it's got to be about football, right? Am I hearing what I want to hear? Do you think that that's code for, hey, man, for all the flash and dash that Colorado had in terms of this upset, there's still some football things like they didn't do very well, i.e. run the football and stop the run. Like, is that kind of his way of bringing it back to the reality of just having to compete?
Could be. It could also just be kind of a reminder that, like, there's going to be another game Saturday. We're going to have a different chance to go through all of the, the
season isn't over.
Season leading up to it, but they're going to play another football game. I mean, I would imagine he's somewhat taken back by this sort of response after the first game. I mean, here's the thing about Matt Rhule. I know he's watching and reading and hearing everything. So he's well aware of where some of the anger is in this program already. So some of it might just be hey, we're going to go play another game on Saturday. Like that's what we do. You play football games. Each week you get an opportunity to play a game and put something on paper, and then it's done. And then you move on to the next week. And I think around here, we sometimes forget about the part where you have to move on past the result to the upcoming week. And I think that I don't want to say it bodes well for Nebraska because, again, I thought Colorado looked better than I anticipated they would. But I don't know that I look at it and think they have no chance in this game. I think if they show up, they run the football, and their defensive front plays how it can, I think Colorado's got some real issues in the trenches that Nebraska could expose. Mm-hmm. Now, could they lose because Colorado has some playmakers that Nebraska can't match? Sure. But I think they can make this a game, and I think they can make this the kind of game that is going to be difficult for a team like Colorado to play.
I think it's amazing how this line came out at 1.5. It's already been bet to 3, and people think it's too low. Like, Vegas isn't dumb.
No.
Vegas is not dumb. So
they maybe lost the thread on TCU as a 20-point favorite, but to be fair, they did play in the national championship last year.
Yeah, I mean, early seasons.
Early seasons tough in openers, but week 2 is notorious for getting folks to overreact on week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Notorious.
Love to overreact.
React.
Schaefer, real quick here. I know that you've kind of been following recent Nebraska commit Connor Booth, who just kind of went out. Yeah, kind of just went out and had himself a nice first quarter.
His dad's a good buddy
in
of mine.
in their first game. For people that haven't had the opportunity to see Connor like you have, real quick, we got about a minute. What are some of the things that you like about his game for Nebraska?
I mean, he is just a big, strong kid. Like, it's difficult. Lincoln Lutheran's young too, and so they really struggled to stay in front of him. They struggled to bring him down. I mean, they struggled to run with him. The interesting thing about Connor is he's fast enough that he can just bounce it to the outside and win the foot race. But he also has some element of power and some wiggle to him.
He's a pretty big kid.
You know, I thought his vision was actually one of the more impressive parts of watching him on Friday night. And he's going to be a really intriguing athlete. I wish I saw more of him at linebacker. I mean, I think that he's coming in as a fullback, but this is one of those guys that could be a pretty nice special teams player for you too. I mean, and that's if he ends up on the football field. I hear a lot of chatter about the baseball timing, so we'll see.
Yeah, we have heard that as well. Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7, trying to keep us all on the rational plane.
It's a failing battle. I'm the guy pushing the boulder up the mountain only to lose the boulder halfway there and start
I believe that's a Sisyphus reference.
I can't say the word, so I just talk around it.
Shape, we appreciate your
snark.
We appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Mike J.
Hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Rockbrook Camera. They're located at 168th and West Center Road in Omaha or 70th and Pioneer in Lincoln. You can also go visit them, rockbrookcamera.com. You can get free shipping on cameras and lenses for purchases over $199. We will have more of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
No. Coach Sanders is a football guy. And so while you can watch all these peripheral things, like, while you can see, like, they show their practices, you can watch all this stuff on TV. At the end of the day, like, when has he ever not been serious about football? He's been the head coach now. He's won both places. So they've got elite players, elite skill players, and elite players up and down the front. They've got anytime you have a great quarterback, you're going to have a chance to win. So I wasn't surprised at all.
Welcome back. It is ODB and Ravi Lulla doing the darn thing on a Tuesday. Listen, both of us are having some car issues.
Yeah.
Mine a little less severe than yours,
Yeah.
but Dingman's is the place that you need to go see. You can visit dingmans.com. They got 4 great locations, great give back program, nice people too. That's kind of the thing. I don't like drama and I don't like stress. So Dingman's is a good natural fit.
Especially when you're dealing with car stuff, man. It's already stressful. You need somebody to bring the temperature down a little
just bring
bit.
it down a little. So
especially when you're driving a rental you don't like that much. And,
There's Ravi here for Toyota. Yeah, I see that individual endorsement deal is well on the way, man.
Well, listen, if you're
Toyota for Ravi,
if you're a Jeep dealership, hit me up. Because I will ride and die with my Jeeps. But.
So make sure you tell the great folks out at Dingman's that we sent you. That is funny. That's irrational.
No, I told you, it makes me irrationally angry to be in that car.
Yeah. We got to get to this call. It's not so funny anymore.
We got to get to this call. We also have to we're going to get to our college football predictions because we were so caught up on Nebraska, Minnesota on Friday
Last
that we
week we didn't
blew right by it.
Full disclosure, you'll know that I kept my same picks because it would be easy to say Florida State or
also teaser, Florida State is in mine, but they already were in
I know
mine.
you're a lover.
Listen, I'm an FSU guy.
You're a Seminole honk.
I've always enjoyed it. Listen, when they're bad, I know. Yeah. But before we do that, let's get to our friend Kool-Aid Steve on the War Horse Sportsbook hotline. Steve, you got a bet you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I want to speak to Robbie for a second.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What's up?
You were talking all kinds of smack when we made this bet earlier. Colorado doesn't have anybody coming back, and Deion got rid of all his players, and they only won one game. How you feeling now, fella?
I feel fine. All of that is still true.
Yeah.
They have 86 new guys. It's not going to go seamlessly. Did they play good in week one? Absolutely.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I could have to ship some pizzas, but
listen,
that's not happening. I'm still winning that bet.
I felt like I learned more about TCU on Saturday than I did Colorado. Legitimately.
And what did you learn about Minnesota?
I think Minnesota is about what I thought they were.
You know what's interesting, Steve? Because when you said this to me not last year, it was a while, it was some months ago. You liked Deion Sanders from the jump. Was that you that told me you wanted Nebraska to hire him?
Absolutely.
And I kind of looked at you sideways, like I didn't expect that coming from you.
I know what your preconceived notion of me is.
No, because I actually vouched for you. I was one of your few supporters. I get it.
Yeah, no, I think there's two different people. There's Deion Sanders and there's Prime Time.
Right.
I am so sick of hearing Coach Prime.
I can't believe they keep calling him that.
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
And I like the guy. I still say Coach Sanders.
Well, he is. Did you hear the interview when one of the reporters said, well, obviously, what's his son's name? Sherrod or something like
Shedeur.
that? Shedeur is the starting quarterback. And he cut the guy off at the knees and said, whoa.
Yeah, you make it seem like I gave him the job. He earned it or whatever. Yeah, I saw that.
Well, I suspended him when he was 5 minutes late to a team meeting.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that I gave him this. He's earned everything.
Yeah.
And I think that players want to play for him because he knows what it takes to play in the NFL.
Mm.
And that's why people will follow him.
My man.
Players. And I truly don't have anything against Rhule, but in the game on Thursday, I didn't see $9 million worth of improvements.
Mm.
And, you talk about.
Well, we got to stop saying that because that's just the cost of doing business. You know what I mean?
What are they? No. The cost of doing business when they first offered Rhule the position was like $5 or $6 million.
Well,
held us hostage, and then came back and said, "Well, we can't find anybody else. You want to take the job? I'll take the job."
No.
Well, perception is reality.
Okay, I'll let you have it. Okay. I'm in a good mood today.
Well, golly, thanks.
I'm just looking forward to some fish. That's all.
Why kiss your ring too, or what? No. I feel much more confident in this 21 points after watching both teams on the field.
Wow.
I made a prediction that Sims will not finish this game, and he will not finish the season as the starter. Scott Frost and the fans have learned over the past 4 years, you cannot have a starting quarterback that turns the ball over. You can't win. And if he throws or fumbles or turns the ball over twice in the first half, I hope to hell he's pulled from the game.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hit us on Friday with your actual score prediction, okay?
Well, I don't need to wait that long.
All right. Well, go ahead. What do you got?
49-21.
Oh, Lord. All right. See,
bumping it to 28. I see.
I'll be texting you the address here shortly this week after this game. All right, buddy. Be safe out there.
That's our friend Kool-Aid Steve. Let's get to Jack.
Is he saying 49? That
Yes.
Well, he's not our friend.
It's okay.
We'll call him a friend still.
Shane, I'll share
as long as
he fish with you.
As long as he pays up on the bet, he's still a friend.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Let's get to our friend Jack. Wants to talk about the Minnesota game. What's up, Jack?
Well, I got two things I'd like to say real quickly. I think the angst from the fan base mostly comes from the fact that it's the same old thing. We were the best team on the field, but not the smartest team on the field. And that happens over and over again. You know, you sit there and you're watching game over the last few years, and you get midway to the fourth quarter and you think to yourself, what are they going to do to mess this up? And sure enough, it would happen. And I think we saw a little bit of that carryover from that in Minnesota. And I think that's where the bulk of the angst comes from. And you know, I'm not disappointed. You know, I haven't sunk the ship yet here, but it is disappointing that we lost the same way we always lose.
Yeah.
And my other thing is I don't understand with Sim's skill set why we're not running more RPO type plays out of that offense instead of just straight drop back trying to turn him into Tom Brady kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand that. Thanks, and I appreciate your help.
That's a fantastic call, Jack. And I have a feeling you're going to see more RPOs.
I certainly hope so.
Kemp was wide open on the batted ball RPO, and just the concept is tough in general.
Yeah,
right.
Tough to defend. Yeah,
off odds. We repped it 30 times yesterday in walkthroughs just because he's got there. We think that they're going to have to control our outsides a certain kind of way. So, I mean, we have to understand how to utilize RPO. It's a tough concept. I think you'll see it a ton more. I think that's really astute.
So we've got a little less than a minute here. Do you want to squeeze in our college football playoff, or you want to wait till tomorrow?
Let's squeeze it.
All right. So I've got mine are easy. All right. I was on Florida State before the season. Sunday certainly didn't hurt, but I've got Florida State. This is my crazy one. I still like Utah. I want Michigan and Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going with Georgia. USC Notre Dame winner.
Okay.
I went with USC.
Okay.
So I'm going Georgia, USC, Michigan, and Alabama.
I'm from Greenbow, Alabama. All right, coming up next, I
almost put Notre Dame in.
I thought you were going to. We have got our friend Brian
but I had
Howell.
to stick to it. Even though I hate SC's defense.
I appreciate that.
I had to stick with my original pick.
He's gonna talk to us about the Colorado Buffaloes because we haven't talked about them at all today here on Benning and Lulla.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes.
Wonderful game, wonderful beginning, intriguing.
And I stand up here before you and try to pour into you so much and try to teach you about your time. Some of y'all get sensitive, but I'm just trying to push you into your destiny.
The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
And I stand up here before you and trying to pour into you so much and try to teach you about your time. And some of y'all get sensitive when I'm just trying to push you into your destiny. I've had my time. This ain't about me. This is about every last one of y'all. All these coaches right here have been assembled to bless you. We've had our time. Just so happens, if we mess around and do our job right, some of the coaches that desires to, they get elevated and appreciated. And that's what we want. But we're all here for you because it's your time.
That is Coach Prime, as Damon likes to call him.
That's Coach Sanders.
He sounds like he has been caffeinated at our friends at the Beanery with their 4 great locations, Gretna, Papillion, Ashland. New one opening up in October off 168th and Giles. Check them out, thebeanerycoffee.com, or email them, info@thebeanerycoffee.com. Locally owned and operated, and they roast their own coffee. Joining us now is Brian Howell. He is a Colorado Buffaloes beat writer for buffzone.com. Brian, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
We're doing good. I have to imagine, how long have you been covering Colorado football?
A minute.
This is my 14th season.
Yep.
So your life has probably changed pretty dramatically in the last 9 months, yeah?
Yeah, quite a bit. It's a little bit different.
Like doing all the radio hits is the guy for the Buffaloes. Because I remember the first time we had you on, and my questions have now changed because now it's centering around how you're handling the expectations that come with the early success versus how you're handling the expectations of just acquiring Coach Sanders as your head coach, right? You see how fast that happened?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think certainly Saturday, heightened all that. And, there was already, a target on these guys, and, they're, everybody's watching this team. And then you go out and have a victory like that, which I think probably until last night was the most impressive win in the nation this year, or this week. I think Duke maybe had a more impressive one, but still one of the more impressive wins of the weekend. And it's only going to heighten things, especially with Nebraska coming to town.
Brian, I'm wondering, with the heightened expectations and everything like that, I mean, if we pull back for a minute here and are a little bit realistic, going 6-6 would still be a phenomenal season for this program in terms of where they've been. But is that going to be enough to satisfy people at this point, considering how quickly this train has left the station?
Yeah, I think so. I think most Buff fans will be satisfied by that. And I mean, you always want more, but I still think that the realistic fans will understand that 6-6 would be a really good year, and that, those who follow football know that you can't make too many judgments based off of 1 week.
So it's interesting. I think lost in all the hoopla was the Pac-12 went 13-0 over the weekend. So the conference maybe will be tough. And having said that, the win over TCU elevates your win-loss total by 1 game or more than that now?
I think it could be more than that. I know the over-under from in Vegas went from 3.5 to 5.5 just after that win. So I think it. I projected them 6-6 coming into the season.
Yeah.
Loss at TCU, and so I look at it now and I think, man, could they be 8-4? 9-3. I don't know. I still think there's some really good teams, in the conference that, they have to go out to Oregon, which is going to be, a brutal trip. Then USC comes here. They've never beaten USC in their history. They got to go to Utah later in the year, and Utah's really good. So those are 3 games right there that you look at and say, I would pencil those in as losses, and then they're not going to win all the other games that you think that they could win. So I think 8-4, 7-5. That's probably realistic at this point.
Yeah, you got a huge. Well, I don't even want to fast forward. My dark horse in the Pac-12 is Oregon State. It's kind of funny how people just overlook them. And Smith was easily the best hire of that 2017-2018 coaching cycle, which I think only 4 of those guys are still at their respective schools.
That didn't go well.
But Brian, let me ask you this. So obviously we know that what glitters was gold, right? That was your skill guys. That was Shedeur. Playing at a high level. You still got to stop the run and run the football. Fool's gold, or just how they're going to have to play when you watch this team on offense?
Yeah, I wouldn't say fool's gold, because I think that what you saw was real with those skill players and with Shedeur. But certainly I think they've got to play better if they're going to get to that 7 or 8 win mark, and maybe even the 6, because you can't give up 500 plus yards and 42 points every week. And that defense was not very good the other day, and they had a couple of really good stops in the red zone, a couple nice interceptions. But TCU up until that last drive had scored touchdowns 5 out of 6 drives, and the only one they didn't score in that stretch was Travis Hunter making this unbelievable interception that right at the goal line, pretty much. So they were almost 6 for 6 on that stretch, and they were not very good. And they gave 190 yards rushing in the second half. So I think the concerns we had about the defense coming into the season are still there. And I still think some of the concerns we have about the offensive line are still there. He was sacked 4 times, and they had some penalties. They didn't run the ball very well. So some of those concerns we had are still there. But I think the biggest thing was that offense was maybe even better than what we thought coming in.
We're talking with Brian Howell. He covers Colorado for Buff Zone. I've been thinking a lot about, obviously, the whole Deion Sanders of it all, Brian, and you're much closer to the situation than we are. It seems like a lot of people's issue with Deion is that they think it's more bluster than substance, but obviously there's real football things going on in that room. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the result that we did on Saturday. How have you been able to kind of separate the style from the substance as you try and evaluate this team?
Yeah, well, honestly, for me, I went out and covered the Celebration Bowl, his last game at Jackson State in Atlanta in December. And I went out there with the intention. I talked to his team. I said, I just want to come out and learn about the program. And I learned that weekend. Came away extremely impressed that weekend with the substance that's there. And there's a ton of it. And it felt like a family with Jackson State when I was there for a couple of days. And there's absolutely substance there. And so I came away very impressed. And so I've kind of felt that way all along, that there's a lot more substance than people think. And this guy not only knows football, he's extremely detailed. The athletic director, Rick George, has told the story that when he met with Deion, he could not believe the detailed plan he had for turning Colorado. So it was more detailed than any coach candidate I've ever seen. And so, there's a ton of substance there. And the line that was said to me by someone at Jackson back in December was, you can't have that style without the substance to back it up. And there's absolutely substance behind Deion Sanders as a coach.
Brian, was it comfortable, uncomfortable? You knew kind of what you were getting. It's not the media's job to be fans. He does, as he said, keep receipts. There was a little grandstanding, but part of it is who he is. Is there anybody uncomfortable, or is this just kind of how it's going to be?
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable just because,
there were some straw man arguments out there too, right? But it's like, wait, I think most people are kind of cheering for you, by the way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, the one that everybody thought after the game, I mean, I don't know, I think it's been revealed at this point, but it was Ed Werder from ESPN, and that goes back to when, Werder covered him at the Dallas Cowboys, so there's a long history there. But certainly, he pays attention to stuff. I mean, there was a tweet that I had in the middle of the month of August where I just kind of, I don't need to go too deep into it, where I just kind of backed up a former player who's got his waiver denied and saying, and really ripped the NCAA. So people thought I was ripping Coach Prime, which I wasn't. And he brought it up at the next press conference and said, "Oh, you've got some controversy going on, huh?" And so he sees all this stuff. So you've got to pay attention, and it's fascinating because covering this guy, you almost feel like, do I have to act like a fan, or else I'm going to get my credentials taken away, or it's just weird. It feels different than it has been in the past for sure, but you still have to try to maintain that and be a journalist and be objective.
Brian, I'm curious how sustainable you think the Travis Hunter situation is in terms of playing that number of snaps on a week in, week out basis. Is that the plan moving forward, is to try and get him 100+ snaps a week, or you think they might back off that a little bit to try and keep him a little fresher?
Yeah, I think, certainly, obviously this was a game last week that was a tight game throughout, and so you kind of needed him. I think there's probably going to be some hope that there's some games that aren't as close and you can rest him a little bit more, but the reality is he's their best defensive player and he's their best offensive player. So you want him on the field. And so I think that there's going to be that I think that's the plan, that they're going to play him quite a bit. He's going to start on offense. He's going to start on defense. And, Deion mentioned it yesterday. He was on Pat McAfee. And I noticed it before the TCU game that Travis didn't practice for about 3 straight days. And I thought, boy, is he injured? But Deion said yesterday on the Pat McAfee show that he's going to give Travis a lot of practice off, and that after the game on Saturday, he said, I don't even want to see him on the field until Wednesday. So they had a walkthrough on Sunday, and then they're going to practice today. He doesn't want Hunter practicing those days at all. So they're going to load manage him through practice and then let him go in game day. So I think that's the plan. I think we could see 100+, 120+ snaps every week.
Brian, let me get you out on this. Is Coach Prime going to be what he likes to be affectionately known as, or is Coach Sanders going to be okay with Coach Sanders?
Yeah, he's good with Coach. You mean being called?
Yeah.
Being called? Yeah, he's good with that. I mean, some people call him Deion, but he likes being called Coach and Coach Prime. And so, but I've called him Coach, I've called him Deion, and it's all been good.
That's our friend.
Oh, fantastic stuff, Brian.
Brian Howell from buffzone.com. Brian, we appreciate your time.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
All right. That's a Tuesday here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We'll catch you again tomorrow.